If you thought the Wriggler wasn't real before, wait until you hear me talk about Ruben Bain going number 15 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Ruben Bain's walk to the podium was like Omar in The Wire. I was like, oh my God, everyone's in big, big trouble. He is pissed off.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange Show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Connor Rogers for what is the biggest episode of the year. Rounds 1 through 7 in the books. 3 days of the 2026 NFL Draft have come and gone, which means it's time for the grades, baby. It's time to go back to school, and it's time to give a grade for every single team draft haul in the NFL. Connor, this is going to be a doozy, my friend. This is the longest episode outside of the 7-round mock draft show that we do. This is the longest and most extensive episode that we do all year long. How you feeling, my friend?
I feel good. This is the final, really the final to-do of all of this on the 2026 class. By the way, the Wriggler going full Joker selfie video. Terrifying stuff. In the moment, I really didn't realize it until then you watch it again. And then the Wriggler Acts 2 and 3 took place on Friday and Saturday. It's truly amazing.
Oh, I can't wait to get to the Bucs haul, let me tell you. We're in for a ride. We're going to go through every single draft haul that we have here today on this show. We'll go through every single pick, and we're going to talk about a lot of things here on this show. Of course, we'll talk about the very taboo subject of team boards versus the consensus board, which has the internet all in a tizzy. That's one factor when it comes to draft grades, but we'll also talk about some scheme fits. We'll talk about how well we believe teams address their need and prioritize certain positions as they went about the draft, how they moved up and down with certain trade value goes into this as well. There's a lot of ways that you can do draft grades. And look, very top of the show, Lance Zierlein said it best, where he said, hey, draft grades are fun, but obviously we're giving out grades to people that haven't even taken the test yet. These guys haven't played in the NFL. However, the draft is still a game, and we still scout these players ourselves. So we are giving it grades based on sort of how we felt like they did versus how we would do it, because that's why you guys watch, and that's what makes the NFL draft a lot of fun. So I'm excited to get to everything with that in mind.
Well, I think something you and I always emphasize, and it's a large reason this show exists, is the draft is entertaining. How quickly people forget that. It is entertainment. There's analysis and really important analysis mixed in, but draft grades are entertainment. You can laugh at them later on. You could look back and you could look at it and be like, okay, the analysis of the process was actually right. It's just, this is part of the fun of it, right? What's the people that get so upset over draft grades? I mean, if you're doing this all year, you want to give your feedback of what you thought of the draft. I don't that's the point,
right?
What's the point?
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it'll be cool to have, obviously a pretty long and extended show today, where the analysis of the picks is more important than maybe the final grade.
Yep, 100%.
By the way, I almost slept through the consensus board war.
Really?
I slept through in my foxhole. I woke up and I felt like when the For You kind of reminds you of all the hell you've missed.
It's true. It's true. Yes.
Yeah. I was shaken awake much later than I usually sleep after our marathon stream Saturday. And I woke up in the middle of mortars going off about the consensus board.
I had one of those mornings on Sunday morning where I realized that I had to, I got to wake up at 7 to make sure that I packed to get to the airport in time for my flight that was 10. And I woke up at 7, and the alarm, my alarm went off at 7, and I checked my flight, and it's like, hey, it's delayed 30 or 45 minutes because, they had maintenance on the plane. I was like, all right. So I let 30 minutes go by, and then it goes, it's delayed another 30 minutes. So I'm like, all right, now I'm screwed. Now I'm just going to sit here and wait in 30-minute increments to go to the airport. I'm not actually going to get to go back to sleep. So I just ended up going to the airport really early.
You love going to the airport really early. This is the best news you could possibly get.
Twist my arm.
Hey, man, one of the wings fell off the plane. It's going to take us a while to fix this. And you're like, well, I'll go sit at the airport bar for 9 hours, eat wings, play Breath of the Wild straight through.
Love a good early airport. By the way, speaking of wings, when we got done with the day 3 stream, It was cold and raining outside
out.
in the city of New York. But you know what? The draft just ended and I wanted wings, damn it. So I found some wings that had phenomenal reviews and I walked like 20 minutes in the pouring rain to go get them. I sat down soaked at that table and I said, I want 15 wings, half of them lemon pepper, half of them buffalo, French fries with the lemon pepper seasoning on top of the French fries, and get me an extra ranch. And you know what? It's one of the best meals I'll have all year. No regrets.
The
Zero
meal
regrets.
After day 3 of the draft.
The chat's yelling, so just wings. Not this time.
And?
There was actually French fries involved, but normally it is just wings.
Food never tastes better than after day 3 of the draft. Never tastes better.
No.
I could cry after that first bite.
See,
after day 3 of the draft.
See, somebody in the chat just said, wait, just 15? Guys, I'm washed. I wish I wasn't. I wish I could put away 20, 25 wings like I used to be able to. I'm just not built that way anymore. I'm just not.
I mean, to be fair to you, too, we were on air we sat down at like 11:30 at Bleacher Report. We went on around a little before 12. I think our stream ended a little after 7. When you don't eat that long, it's actually harder to take down like a monster meal. I don't think you were going to be built for 30 wings at that point, no matter what. No, it's not your fault.
No, I'm out of my game.
You remember, don't got it no more.
Dude, in college, we used to have it memorized which day of the week there was all you can eat something. Like all you can eat wings at this place, all you can eat like sushi at this place, like whatever it was. Like every single day of the week we knew the food specials. So I was built for it in college. I can't say that I'm built for it now, but the wings tasted great. Regardless, I see some people giving us some super chats already. I just want to let you guys know in the show we might shout out some super chats sort of as we see it through the show, but this is going to be a long one. This is going to be a beast. Save your super chats. We're going to do like a big post-draft Q&A thing with you guys. So save the super chats. We appreciate you guys. If you wanted to send it just because you wanted to support the show, feel free. We love you and we appreciate you. But a lot of the questions that might come from super chats, we're going to do a separate answer for. So I just want to let you guys know that right off the top. And with that, let's get right to it. Alphabetical order. Arizona Cardinals, baby. So the chef told me that the animation, as you can see on the screen, what we'll do is we'll have every single selection that the guys had. The chef even threw in the notable UDFA signings. Look at the chef.
The chef's he's good.
Going above and beyond. We love to see that.
I am familiar with your game.
We are very familiar with the chef's game. We'll show you where they were selected and then the value of it, where those guys were on our board. Now, of course, we'll talk through some instances where we go, hey, I had this guy ranked 95th, but for this team specifically, I would have had him a lot higher. So we'll go through all that nuance in that conversation here on the show, but then we'll give it a grade. Connor, the animations, I've been told from our producer, are set up to where you need to give your analysis first. So we'll talk about this haul, and then you'll give the analysis. It was Jeremiah Love at number 3 overall, Chase Bisontis in the 2nd round, Carson Beck in the 3rd, and then it was Caleb Proctor, Reggie Virgil, Carson Scherer, and then Jaden Williams to round it out in the 7th round for them. So, Connor, talk to me about this haul, and then give your grade there at the end.
Always tricky, right, when a team takes who you deem as one of, if not the best player in the draft, and you still look at it and go like, Jeremiah Love's awesome. And when they got Chase Bisontis at the top of round 2, I'm like, okay, the Cardinals are building this thing the way Mike LaFleur really needs to. They're going to be more athletic. They're going to have a varied run game. They are going to lean on the run. They're going to get this offensive line right. And then to me, the problem of this draft might just be a 2-player class. That's my biggest fear with all of it. There's things to like about Caleb Proctor as a gap shooter. And I knew he was going to be drafted higher than where I had him. But he is a very pass rush specific interior player right now. And he played good against LSU, but he's still going to be dealing with a higher level of competition, much higher. And then you see the value there. Like, I just thought they started to reach in a lot of places. Scherer is a special teamer. That's fine. I wasn't a fan of either Texas Tech wide receiver. Carson Beck felt like it felt like they needed somebody that can play quarterback sooner rather than later, But when you're drafting a guy with the very first pick of the third round, that needs to be a guy with starter upside to me. And I saw Beck as a guy with a good backup upside. That's why I had him better value than you, Trev, and still minus 49 on the big board ranking. So, the reason I was just lower on this draft, as much as I love Jeremiah Love and I'm a big fan of Chase Basantis for their line, I have a fear it's a 2-player draft, and I gave it a C.
Okay, so I'm with you here on this analysis. I'm struggling to really like this class. I think that of the teams that we're going to draft Jeremiah Love in the top 10, this was probably the spot that I wanted him to go the least. I just don't think the team is built for it. I think they're a ways away. I love Chase Basantis. Everybody knows that. But, Carson Beck, I feel like was much more of a representation of the failure that they had this offseason than anything else. I don't really think it was like yeah, man, we really believe in Carson Beck. I think you picked this player because you had to, because you had no choice. And that's why you felt like you needed to pick him at 65 as well. Now, an interesting wrinkle of news as of this morning is that Brennan Sorsby, the quarterback who was at Cincinnati and then transferred over to Texas Tech, he might lose this upcoming year's eligibility because he's getting in trouble gambling while being on Indiana's team and gambling on those Indiana games. That's the report, at least. And if he loses that year of eligibility, he's going to be in the supplemental draft this year. And if he's in the supplemental draft,
that's nuts.
Maybe Arizona gets saved because maybe Arizona just goes, okay, well, we're going to give whatever we got to give to get Brennan Sorsby, because there's a chance that Sorsby would have been a top 50 player in this class if he would have declared. But I can't factor any of that in. This is a C- draft to me. I don't feel as though they went about this the right way. And if you were going to take Jeremiah Love, I much would have rather you trade out, even though this isn't my number 2 overall player in the class. So plus value on the big board, but just not good value. And I just don't love the team building of what they did here.
I'm with you. It's tough because I love the player and I think he'll be good in LaFleur's system, but there is a larger conversation about this team. And it was hard for anybody not named the Raiders because the Jets and Browns had this problem in this draft as well. It was going to be almost impossible to just solve quarterback. And who knows? There's always a world where Carson Beck is just way better than anybody expected. And, and these grades look foolish and on it goes. But it goes back to, wouldn't you rather just take a gamble on the Malik Willis contract if you're Arizona and then use all of these picks for the team? Like, if pick 65 was an impact defender and Malik Willis is the quarterback, this might be a B, a totally different grade. So that's where I'm just kind of hung up on it. It felt like they got cornered into needing a guy in a quarterback class that we didn't love. And, we've talked about Beck's arm falling off a little bit as well since the elbow surgery, which is tough to factor into this as well.
Yeah, that's the tough part for me. Is like, it's not like I look at Carson Beck and go, man, well, if he develops or if he spends some more time, like I wonder about just where his arm is health-wise, because he did not look like the same quarterback this year at Miami with that arm. And it only gets more difficult when you get to the NFL. So I just have a tough time really believing in the process of how we got to selecting Carson Beck there. I think their wide receiver room is already pretty good. And I didn't love Reggie Virgil anyways. It's a 5th round pick. But Caleb Proctor, I like. Caleb Proctor's nice for this team. And I talked about this on the live stream that we did. I like that they got an attacking type of a player in there. So I like that along the defensive line. You talked about getting a special teams guy in Sherrar. But overall, C- class for me here for the Arizona Cardinals. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think that covers it up pretty well.
Atlanta Falcons. Let's get to the Falcons grade next. So they didn't have a 1st round pick. James Pierce Jr. Trade where they moved up and they gave a future 1st round pick for that to be the case. 2nd round, 58th overall, they took Avion Terrell. 3rd round, they took Zachariah Branch. 4th round, it was Kendall Daniels, the linebacker from Oklahoma. 6th round, Ontario Thompson. 6th round, Harold Perkins Jr. And then 7th round, Ethan Onyanwa, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. Connor, talk about this class here.
So, Trevor, when you grade, something I've tried to do to keep it simple, and it makes people upset, and I get it, I don't factor in that they got, for instance, they got James Pierce as a part of this draft. I just can't.
I don't factor his like legal troubles into this. Like, I think there's some people that are like, oh man, this class is bad because James Pierce Jr. has the legal troubles. It's like, okay, like obviously that's a true factor for the Falcons, but I'm not putting that in my draft grade for them in 2026.
I just evaluate the collection of players. And I say, I say through multiple blurbs of the article on NBC, if you have more draft capital, in theory, it is easier to get a higher grade because obviously you have a higher chance of having a better class. I'm honest about that. So I always say right off the top,
you're an honest man.
I'm an honest man. Rather than my usual, it's out of my hands. So
it's up to Frank now.
Yeah, it's up to Frank. We're going to have that combo. So when it comes down to it, that put them in a tough spot right away. But I don't like how they use their capital. I just have to be honest. The only player that two players that I like in this group, Zachariah Branch, I think can be a good slot for them. He's reliable in terms of being a natural pass catcher. He's reliable. He's electric with the ball in his hands. They needed a slot receiver. They definitely need to get help. I think he's probably a number 3, but I have no problem with where they took him. I just have significant questions about Avion Terrell's speed. Kendall Daniels, for me, a former safety, he's a big linebacker, but he's not fast, and his instincts haven't translated to linebacker where he doesn't have that speed to make up for that yet, so he's kind of caught in no man's land right now. And I know Jeff Ulbricht's their defensive coordinator. Places he's been have drafted guys with that theory, and they try to have them be more see ball, get ball, rather than, less thinking and more just. But I didn't think he was a great enough athlete where that's the bet to take. I thought Harold Perkins was actually more of that guy, and maybe Perkins can rush for you a little bit on third downs with a NASCAR package. Onyanwa, Ohio State didn't even want to put him on the field. I was excited about him over summer when I watched the Rice tape, and it just didn't work out at Ohio State. He wasn't really playable. Obviously see massive reaches across this draft. I gave this draft a D+. This is one of my least favorite drafts. I don't really think they got much out of it besides Zachariah Branch. Terrell might be okay as a third corner, but once again, I just did not like this collection of players and how they've used draft capital. And I know it's a different crew of guys now making these decisions. So yeah,
I ended up giving this draft a B, and the reason I gave it a B is because I'm kind of a sucker for Avion Terrell. I want to love the player. I really do. And Billy Bowman Jr. tore his Achilles end of November. So
sorry, I gave this a C. That's my bad. I gave this a C-, but not to cut you off there. I just had the article open. I want to make sure it's consistent with the article. I gave it a C-.
Oh, right.
Not that it's much different, but
sorry, I ended up giving it a B, and the reasons why is because I think there's a world where Avion Terrell can play in the slot for them. I think he's a feisty slot defender. He's a good run defender, especially with Billy Bowman tearing his Achilles. So I do still have faith in that, and I just have more faith in Avion Terrell, it sounds. I agree with you. I think that Zach Branch is going to be a playmaker for them here. And then Kendall Daniels, it's hard for me to be harsh on either Kendall Daniels or Ontario Thompson because I didn't get to their full scouting reports. So I also kind of have to be fair to this analysis, and I can't say that I didn't love them. I know you didn't. You were able to get to their full scouting report, but I don't want to be overly harsh, even though after the draft happened and I kind of got some more research on these guys when I was just thinking about these draft hauls, I can see the similar concerns that you have there with Daniels and Thompson. I have to be fair in that, there were other linebackers I think in theory I would have taken over this guy, but I didn't do the full scouting report, so I don't want to be overly harsh on that. I think that Terrell and Branch can be difference-making players for them. I like Perkins. I'm not sure you had to draft Onyanwa, so that one's a little okay, but it's 231, so I'm not going to be overly harsh on it. So I ended up giving it a B, I think just because I want to believe in Avion Terrell. I really want to believe in Avion Terrell, and I think that if he is faster than certainly the 40 time, and if he can get a little bit faster in the NFL, I do think that he could be a good slot defender, and it sounds like the Falcons might need that with Billy Bowman tearing his Achilles. So I ended up giving this one a B, but it's a little bit of an incomplete grade for me because they drafted 2 players that I just didn't get to their full evals of.
Yeah, well, for me with Thompson, because I talked about Kendall Daniels and what I thought of him, Thompson is a really, really unique athlete at 306 pounds. He's played at 4 different programs right now: Iowa, Western Michigan, and Washington. It's there athletically in terms of testing. He's blocked punts on special teams. He's got strong hands. But this is 4 programs where he's just not been productive. And the athleticism in terms of the testing does not match the play athleticism. So that they probably took, and once again, it's like the 6th round, so I get it. You're just seeing if you can tap into that athleticism more in this scheme, but I just want to explain why I was lower on these guys than where they were drafted.
All right. What do we have next? Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are next up. Large class here for the Baltimore Ravens.
And shooters.
And we've got some badges that we're giving some of these players in this class. We've got some favorite fits overall, and then we also have favorite day 3 selections, difference-making day 3 selections. And we didn't do this for every single team. We wanted it to be a little bit more of a splash thing. So it's like, oh, okay, well, if you see a guy really stand out in the class, that really means something. So it's 5 and 5, I think, from each of us in both of those categories. And Connor's got one here. For the Baltimore Ravens, they drafted Vega Ioane in the 1st round, Zion Young in the 2nd, Jacoby Lane in the 3rd, Elijah Surratt in the 4th, Matthew Hibner in the 5th, Chandler Rivers, Josh Cuevas, Adam Randall all in the 5th as well. Ryan Eckley, the punter from Michigan State, in the 6th round, Rayshon Benny in the 7th, and Evan Bernstein, the guard from Northwestern, in the 7th round too. They also, notable UDFA signings, you guys see it right there. Diego Pavia. There it is, folks.
Mini camp invite.
It's true.
Not even a real.
Nah, no, easy.
No, it's not
easy.
No.
What do you mean, no?
It doesn't count. I won't allow it.
A mini camp invite doesn't count?
No, there's millions of those.
No, don't take it away from the
UDFA
kid.
signings have real bonuses in them. Life-changing bonuses.
But maybe that's exactly what the Ravens wanted, right? They just wanted him in a proven situation again. Because they know that means that he's going to perform his best. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would not be shocked if he gets a contract after that and gets into camp. So, the Ravens, to me, and they're pretty consistent with this, as you see the value on the right side, they do a good job keeping in mind value while still attacking needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to do in the draft. Some teams are just like, oh, we have needs and we like the player and we take the player where we take the player. I think for the most part, Baltimore is conscious of value and still lands on their needs, where Benga Ioane, I think he's going to be one of the better players to come out of this draft. I get it. He's a guard, so he wasn't going top 10, although I'm sure there was a combo at least there for the Giants at 10. Zion Young got one of my badges here as one of my 5 favorite fits. I just think he's exactly what they need at edge. I valued him higher than where he went. He's a 3-down player. He's an edge setter. He plays with power. I think him and Mike Green are so different that now you have 2 totally different edge rushers across from Trey Hendrickson that you could rotate. And that's really, really good team building. Jacoby Lane, that was a reach for me, but they took 2 different types of receivers, where Surratt is pro ready, super detailed, makes catches through contact. Lane can now, even if Surratt ends up playing over him early, Lane can develop as a contested catch outside, that perimeter kind of receiver. They valued Hibner probably because of his pure speed, and I was a little lower on him. So that was a pick. That pick was a little bit of a head scratcher, but it's not surprising to see them do this at tight end because they consistently do. Chandler Rivers, awesome value because he's so sticky as a nickel. Really, really sticky cover guy. He's just undersized, but high IQ. He's going to be able to handle what Jesse Minter throws at him. And then really, what finally made this an A- for me is getting Rayshon Benny at the end of the 7th round. Mm-hmm. He's a rotational run defender that is going to hold up at the NFL level. It's hard to get guys like that in the 7th round, but we had a couple of them this year that we don't really know why they fell to that capacity. So I like the volume approach by the Ravens. I think they addressed their needs, and I think they didn't sacrifice a ton of value to do so.
Yeah, I was between a B+, A- here with this one. Vega's a good pick. Now, you picked him over Ruben Bain Jr. Like, Ruben Bain Jr. was there, and so I kind of do take that into consideration there. But that doesn't make Vega a bad pick. I would have taken Ruben Bain, but that doesn't make Ruben Bain Vega Ioane a bad pick at all. Zion Young, I know you liked him more than me, but this is right around the range in which I would have selected Zion Young anyways. Right. So this is appropriate there. I thought Jacoby Lane at number 80 overall was a massive reach, but I loved Elijah Surratt. And then I thought that Matthew Hibner was a really big reach over the tight ends that were still available. But then Chandler Rivers, Josh Cuevas, Rayshon Benny, Evan Bernstein. I love those guys. Like, I think that's pretty killer in the 3rd round. So I liked not the third round, day 3 of the draft. I thought day 3 was excellent for this team. So I ended up giving it a B+ here for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, there were some, the Hibner and Lane picks, I think were all over the place, but Surratt and then a lot of the day 3 selections were really nice from them. So I like what the Ravens did in this draft. Again, even though I would have taken Ruben Bain over Vega, and then just the Jacoby Lane and the Hibner picks were a little confusing for me.
Nice job by you, Trevor, acting like you're not the reason as the wriggler that Ruben Bain didn't fall to 15.
That's true. Yeah.
With your mythical powers to push him down the board.
That's true. I got to get people off my trail. The draft was too good. The draft was too good, and I'm going to get investigated.
There was AI photos of you in costume.
Are those AI photos?
Yeah, they might be real. That's the real wriggler outfit.
You got to ask yourself.
Good draft for the Ravens. Definitely one of my more favorite drafts.
Yeah, I agree. The Buffalo Bills are the next team that we're talking about here.
So I'm going to purposely do a better job of not talking about every little single thing so that when I talk to you, you're like, all right, we did everything.
No.
Because I'm kicking these off. No, it's I noticed that. And especially here, we got one of your special categories, which is cool. But I will start with saying for the Bills, as they moved around the board, which is a good job by Bean here, they utilized trades to gain more volume, even after they lost the second round pick for DJ Moore. I think they did a good job providing themselves depth and also getting guys that can be starters a year from now if they let some guys go in free agency. Obviously, TJ Parker, this is someone to me with the long arm, the power. I didn't love their edge room going into the draft because I'm not really that high on what's left of Bradley Chubb. So I liked the Parker selection at 35 quite a bit for Jim Leonard. Igbenogson is the one pick here that I look at and go, man, like, I know you want to get bigger and stronger at corner, and a lot of teams prioritize these big corners. That's something we, like, when you talk about the takeaways from this draft, it's like big corners get drafted and the small corners fall down the board, even if the small corners are better than the big corners. He's got to cut down the penalties, but I could see why they prioritized him, even if I didn't love the player. This is the last one I'll talk about. The real standout, of course, and I'm a big Jude Bowery fan, but is Skylar Bell. I mean, Skylar Bell, if there's a world where 2 years from now he kind of takes over that Khalil Shakir role, I look at it and go like, man, I'm not surprised. He's athletic. He finishes plays. He got his drop rate so far down this year. He was super productive. He's an incredibly hard worker. He's from New York, so I know Western New York is very, very far. I've done that drive, but in a way, it's a comfortable-ish homecoming. It's not like going across the country. So I think overall, I think Bean found some big-time value picks that are going to become starters down the road where they'll be able to shed a lot of money down the road as well. So
what'd you give this one for a grade?
That would help, right? I gave it a B.
Okay, all right.
Not flashy in any way. Just rock solid.
So I gave it a B, but I think I would give it a B+ now that I'm kind of like looking at it again. Nathan in the chat asked this. He says, I don't have a problem with the players that we took, but I disagree with the prioritization of needs that Bean had. I mean, he said that corner was the biggest need, and I can't understand that. We talked a little bit about this on the Bleacher Report stream, and that is the fact that if you look at their depth chart, you would say that they have corners. But you got to remember, they're changing from Sean McDermott to Jim Leonard. Leonard's defense is probably asking their corners to do totally different things. They're probably going to play press man a lot more than Buffalo ever played press man before. That's why you draft David Igbenogson, right? Like, that's why you're drafting more of these corners, because sure, you have corners on the roster, but are they the type of corners that you need? And if they're not press man corners, well, it's really hard to ask zone corners to just all of a sudden be press man corners. So you'd rather sort of draft a lot of those guys, because if you don't have specific DBs that can do what your scheme asks them to do, you're going to be in trouble. So I factored that into this as well. They traded down twice and ended up getting TJ Parker, so I think that's plus value for them as well. I give them a thumbs up for doing that. Jude Bowery, I think, can play guard and tackle for them. Skylar Bell is a reliable receiver for them. I didn't love the Alarms or selection. There are other linebackers that I would have taken there, but Jalen Kilgore gets one of my day 3 difference makers badges here, because he is somebody, and we talked about this again on the show, that I love that they drafted Kilgore and Toriano Pry Jr. from Missouri, because they're two totally different slot defenders, nickel defenders. And one of them uses athleticism and size, and the other one's a little bit quicker. And if Kilgore there are some issues with him and how quickly he can flip the hips and be able to be sticky with, tight ends and certainly wide receivers at the NFL level. And like, if that doesn't work out for them, they also added some depth. So they covered their butts there. I like Armaj Reed Adams as a depth guard as well. So to me, this is a B+. Like when you factor in a lot of the trades that they did, getting plus values on those trades. And to be honest, like, the only thing that I don't love about this draft is they didn't actually get a real difference-making nose tackle. I thought they were going to do that. And so that holds it back from being an A. But to me, there's actually a lot to like about this Bills draft where I would give it a B+.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a good call out about D tackle. By the way, I see someone in the chat spoiling grades from the article, and they're not even correct. So if you see people in the chat talking about grades that are wrong, just stick around and actually watch the show. I just want to say that right away. So anyways, but yeah, I'm with you totally that when you look at it, it's one of those where they addressed almost everything, but man, like just 1-2 gapper somewhere. And as you could see on the board, I mean, it's only -5, but Zane Durant's not that guy. Zane Durant's the athletic type, that kind of slendery shoot the gap, one gap penetrator. So that'll be the one thing that they still probably, unless they see somebody on their roster developing into that in year 2 that they took last year.
Carolina Panthers. Interesting draft here for the Carolina Panthers.
For the Pounders?
For the Pounders, yes. Let's analyze who got pounded. Pause.
Jesus.
Monroe Freeling was their first selection. Then it was Lee Hunter, Chris Brazzell the second, Will Lee, Sam Heck, Zakee Wheatley, and Jackson Kawach. That's how you say his last name, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Okay. I did not get to his report, but he was 227, so it's not like he would have swung the grade heavily for me one way or the other. Connor, what'd you think of this class?
This is a fascinating draft for the Panthers because I think they did some unexpected things, right? Even when you look at how they were able to, get Walker in free agency, we were like, they think they're going to be able to bridge it together at tackle for a year. And they said, no, we just prioritize offensive line significantly where we're going to take Freeling here. Now, I'll say this. I wonder if they were a team that they were in on Sadiq. There was some chatter of that, and they were surprised he went in front of them.
Yeah.
There was a little chatter of that, but
yeah,
you still walk out with Freeling, who hopefully can be your long-term, one of your long-term tackles. Lee Hunter, to me, is going to help you stop the run in the middle of the defense. I like the dart throw in round 3 on Brazzell. I knew he was going to slide. There was some concerns from teams, not necessarily about the talent. So you knew he was going to slide a little bit, but he's got a jetpack on. He finishes plays. He had really reliable hands this year. Like at that point of the draft, the talent is just worth the risk. They get the blanket to develop at corner, a bigger corner. Sam Hecht, obviously, Trevor, you and I spazzed out when they got him at this point of the draft because that's a starting center in round 5.
Excellent
and I think maybe a starting safety in round 5 in Zakee Wheatley. Not a significantly plus starter, but an average starter at safety. And I'll say on Jackson Kawach, I got to him very, very late in the process as I was looking at most of those special teams, non-combine guys that popped at their pro day. He's a good athlete. He's agile. He's fearless attacking the run downhill. He does end up on the ground more than you would like. There's no doubt about that. He's played almost 300 snaps of special teams the last 2 years. He was a 7th-round pick that I really, really liked because even if he ends up just as a sub-package linebacker for you, he's going to be a special teams ace. So I was a fan of this Panthers draft, as weird as it was coming together. I'm like, they're going ways I didn't expect, but I gave it a B+ because I think they got multiple starters in this group.
I gave it a B, just a straight B. It's a mixed bag for me here because Freeling and Hunter are both reaches on my board, not only my overall board, but they drafted Freeling over Ionicher and Lomu, who I would have rather had over Freeling. They drafted Lee Hunter over a lot of defensive tackles that I would have rather had over him. Chris Brazzell, I understand, like, he can be the vertical wide receiver that this offense needs. There's no question about it. But he even had, like, inconsistency issues that I go, man, are we kind of just getting on the roller coaster again that we had with Xavier Legette? I know Panthers fans don't want to hear that, but that's sort of where my mind goes to. I think Will Lee is an excellent scheme fit. I think he can play press man for you, but I actually like him better when he's in zone coverage assignments, and no team played more zone than the Carolina Panthers last year. Sam Hecht, obviously the value is phenomenal, getting him at 144, so I'm not going to complain too much, but this is a team that they like their offensive linemen bigger. They like to run the downhill run scheme a lot more, and Hecht isn't as much of an imposing type of center. He's a really good center, but Carolina does like to stay multiple, but I always feel like they're trying to lean more into being a power run game, and Sam Hecht can operate that way, but he wasn't like the best center in the draft when it comes to the downhill power displacement run game. Zakee Wheatley, I think, is good for them in the 5th round. I like them adding a safety there. But then I do look at tight end, and I think I went into this class thinking this team really wants to upgrade what they have at tight end, and unfortunately, they're now just going to go into this season with the same tight end room that they had last season, which I think was a tight end room where they were asking more out of. So it's a mixed bag of a class. I was between like B- and B. I ended up going with a B because there is a world where this works out. Like there is certainly a world where this works out, but there are just other players that I would have rather selected for Carolina. And the thought of they didn't make any sort of upgrades in the tight end room, I thought that was a little bit of a miss by them. So yeah, I give it a B.
That's the one thing you have to quantify depending on how much you buy into it. And I do. I said it at the top that it feels like they definitely got sniped a little bit on Sadiq, and they weren't totally expecting that. But
somebody in the chat saying, hey, David Njoku's still available. If they sign David Njoku, I'd love that for them. I think that would help a ton, and that would sort of like ease my worries of how much I feel like they really wanted to lean into the tight end passing game and just having multiple tight ends on the field, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that with this same room. So if they can get Njoku, I think that'd be great for them.
Chicago Bears.
Dylan Thieneman gets a badge from me as well. One of my favorite fits in this draft, an absolute draft steal, a top 10 player for me that they get at number 25 overall. Logan Jones, who I think is a great scheme fit for them in their in Ben Johnson's outside zone run scheme. Sam Roush, Savion Thomas, Malik Muhammad, Keyshawn Elliott, and then Jordan Vandenberg as their final pick in the 6th round. What do we think, Connor?
I like the collection of players. I do. My 2 criticisms of the draft would be that, and we said this about the Bills a little bit, but I actually make it an even bigger point of priority for the Bears. I'm a little surprised that they didn't come out of it with a stout run defender.
Me too.
That was a big one for me where I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I think Savion Thomas is an awesome returner, and Ben Johnson absolutely has familiarity with players of this skill set. I just don't know if you need to take that player 89th overall. That's the one thing. I mean, is that you see the lack of value in that spot for me. I think Ben Johnson is the right coach and right scheme for him. But if I have to really hammer home lack of value on a pick. But other than that, Thieneman and Kobe Bryant are going to be one of my favorite safety duos to watch in the NFL this year on tape. I'll say it right now. They have so much range. You can, obviously rotate them in different ways with their skill sets. You can kind of have them confuse the offense on the back end of who's doing what. So that was a really, really exciting pick that he fell to them. Logan Jones, I know I liked him a little more than you, Trev. 4-year starter, can start for you right now. Good athlete.
Yeah, if he's gonna go early anywhere, this is it. This is the spot.
He started for 4 years, and he's a really, really high-end athlete. Sam Roush, I love this pick. If this maybe is the last year of Cole Kmet in Chicago, and then you're going to have a guy tailor-made, ready to step into the tight end 2 role with Sam Roush. And even Malik Muhammad, I see a world where he develops as a corner 2 or 3 for them. He has the movement skills, and he has the speed. He needs to increase his play strength. That's one thing, and maybe he can do that at the NFL level as well. So overall, this was a rock-solid draft. I gave this one a B for the Bears.
Okay, I gave this one a B+ for Chicago. I love the Thieneman pick. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be phenomenal for them, especially for a defense that really reaped the rewards of forcing a lot of turnovers the previous season. Thieneman gives you the ability to do that again. Logan Jones, you see, it's minus 53 on my draft board, but if we were doing a Chicago Bears specific draft board, he'd be close to this. I mean, I don't know if he'd be up as high as 57, but he'd probably be in like the 60 to 75 type of range. So I like this for them. You know, it's interesting because I agree. I keep it from being an A because of the lack of defensive line additions really at all with those priority picks. But it's interesting because as I look at the draft, like, I don't want to be unfair about this, right? I can't just say like, oh, they should have added a defensive tackle. It's like, okay, well, you kind of have to analyze where. And if you look at pick number 69, Sam Roush goes 69. The only defensive tackles that I would really say, okay, like, I think that you should have taken maybe these players there at 69 were Chris McClellan, who was drafted 77 by the Packers, and then Big Citrus was drafted 82nd overall by the Minnesota Vikings. So you say to yourself, well, I would like this draft a lot more if it was one of those two guys on the interior, and then if you would have just waited to 89 to draft Sam Roush. But I can't help but think that Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles watched Nate Borkircher go 56.
Yeah, and they were like, not anymore.
Wait, hold on, what?
Yeah, you're right.
And so all of a sudden they get to 69, and I bet they wanted to take Sam Roush at 89. But when Nate Borkircher goes off the board and Marlon Klein goes off the board, then Chicago's sitting there like, holy shit, we got to draft Roush next or we're going to lose him. And I love the fact that they are now 3 deep at tight end to run whatever heavy personnel packages they possibly want. So where the not addressing defensive line, figuring out a way to do that does keep it from being a B or an A from me. It's hard for me to realistically be too harsh on that, given what would have been reality and how the draft was unfolding. So B plus, you could twist my arm into maybe an A minus because of the situation, but I feel pretty confident about saying this is a really nice draft from Chicago, and I do think they're going to get a lot out of all these players.
Yeah, I would say for me too, like, I found myself giving more positive grades this year. I felt like teams, I mean, there's a couple stinkers, but teams for the most part attacked what they needed, were careful with value. A B in the draft. A lot of players don't make it in the NFL, so a B is pretty high end. As Trevor would say on the VR stream, a C is average. So
I mean, it is. It totally is.
Grade.
By the way, Jacobo says Trevor's overall draft grades are completely inconsistent with his board. The Bears are nearly 150 in the negative compared to his rankings, and yet he gave them a B+. Right. Because what is more powerful than just an independent board of where I think these players stack up in a vacuum, what's more important is viewing draft hauls and the spots and where they go, how they're going to fit into depth charts, how they're going to fit into contracts, how they're going to fit into team schemes. That's more important than just the negatives. So the negatives and the positives are references for you guys that the chef wanted to put together from where we have them on our board. And a lot of times they will speak larger to, did we like them or didn't we like them? But Chicago is one of those drafts where you have to take full context into account of where these players are going and how they're going to be deployed in the short and long term. And for that's why Chicago specific players I liked a lot for Chicago. So
yeah,
I'm not going after Jacobo either. Like, I think a lot of people watching this show would kind of think the same thing, but that's the purpose of why we do this exercise. And we don't just give you like an aggregate number of who drafted best against our big board. It's worth conversations about where these players actually end up getting drafted.
Yeah, and Saquad's Barkley said, I feel like you guys have been kind of harsh with the grades, not going to lie. I think part of that is...
Have we?
I don't think we have.
Oh,
we've had a couple, but
just
also,
wait.
Trevor and I have, when we do Fix Your Franchise, we review what our grades have been, and you sit there and you go like, man, it turns out it's really hard to make it in the NFL. So the reality is we're so excited about all these guys, but then when you look 2 or 3 years back, you're like, it's just the miss rate is just so high where I've tried to kind of recalibrate to unfortunately accept that.
The
Bengals.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
So
at number 10 overall, they draft their Dexter Lawrence, which I did bring into account a little bit here with them trading number 10 for Dexter Lawrence.
I didn't, but I wrote in that, like, I thought I wrote in. Maybe I didn't. I will say that obviously I thought that trade was really great for the Bengals. It's not reflected in the grade I gave them here because I'm just grading the package of players. But of course, if they had the 10th overall pick in this draft and they took Caleb Downs, their grade would be much, much different.
Right. Cassius Howell, you have them going, so used to just doing mock drafts. In the second round, they took Cassius Howell. In the third round, Tacario Davis. Fourth round, they got Connor Lew, which I have as one of my day 3 difference makers here. Fourth round, they got Colby Young, the wide receiver from Georgia. Sixth round, Brian Parker. Seventh round, Jack Endries. And then rounded it out with Landon Robinson. What do we got, Connor?
So clearly some good values besides two reaches. And Tacario Davis, I like his size at corner. I just thought it was a little early. Colby Young, I mean, he's got a lot of talent. There's no denying that. I thought that they didn't have a rusher like Cassius Howell. They have a lot of guys in their edge group, but they just don't have a pure island rusher that's just pure pass rush ability to stay off blocks and try to get into the pocket. So it was good to see them add that kind of player into that pass rush group. Connor Lew is a starter at center for me if he's healthy. I thought that was my favorite pick, and clearly it was your favorite pick as well there, Trevor. When you look at Brian Parker, it gives you more offensive line depth because he's a guy that'll probably kick inside at the next level, but he's built to do that. I like Endries to eventually take over that Gesicki role at some point in this offense. And then, Landon Robinson, which there's good value there from me. He's a total tweener outlier, kind of a man without a position. But I think when you get him away from the nose tackle spot he had to play so often for Navy, you might be able to get an NFL player out of that. So I look back at this grade in the written form and I gave it a C+, and it feels kind of harsh. But that's just because they got good value besides too many reaches. But it's really just because they didn't have the 10th overall pick in the draft. If I was factoring in the Dexter Lawrence trade, you can make an argument this is a borderline A- or B+ from the Bengals in this spot.
Oh, you don't have to make the argument that it's borderline. I have this as an A-, and that's because I factored in that they're getting Dexter Lawrence with the 10th overall pick because I think they recognized the defensive tackle was their biggest need, and there was nobody even close to being worth the 10th overall pick at the defensive tackle spot in this draft. So you trade for Dexter Lawrence, you actually get a decently team-friendly contract extension with him, so I love that from them. And the more that I look, I didn't love Tacario Davis. You see that. I thought Tacario Davis was way overdrafted. I am not a Tacario Davis fan at all. I felt like he should have been closer to a 6th round pick than a 3rd round pick, to be honest with you. But outside of that specifically, which brings it down to that A-, I kind of looked at this, and initially my grade was lower. But because they didn't address linebacker at all. And that's really where I started. I was like, dude, they didn't address what was outside of defensive tackle, their biggest need. So I'm going to be harsher on this. But the more I looked at the draft itself, the more I said, okay, if they knew they wanted to add an edge rusher, and clearly they prioritized that position highly, drafting Cassius Howell at number 41, they couldn't really wait until 72. Because by the time 72 came around, all the edge rushers were gone. Romello Height went 70, 2 picks before them at 72. The next edge rusher that got drafted after pick number 72, where they would have had to try to select an edge rusher if they didn't take Cassius Howell at 41, was Jason Barham, who the Cowboys drafted as an off-ball linebacker.
Seems that way, yeah.
And the next legitimate edge rusher was Wesley Williams in the 4th round. So they drafted the edge rusher at 41 in Cassius Howell over C.J. Allen, over Jacob Rodriguez, over Jeremiah Trotter Jr., over those guys, because they were just fearful that if we don't draft one now, we're not going to get one. And you know what? They were right. So, yeah, I don't love that they didn't take a linebacker. I wish that they would have, but I like how they went about using number 10 on Dexter Lawrence, prioritizing edge rusher because they would have been gone by the time they got on the clock at number 72. Connor Lew, I think, is the long-term starting center for this team. Brian Parker is an excellent swing depth interior offensive lineman for you. Jack Endries is big-time plus value for me, and I don't even mind taking the chance on Landon Robinson. So I like this draft. I gave it an A-.
Yeah, listen, I get it. When you factor in Dexter Lawrence, it totally changes the grade. I'm going to try to stay consistent in just evaluating the group of players, but I will put the bow on it saying I have really, really liked the Bengals offseason a lot. I think they did good things in free agency. I like the trade. They got some players in this draft, especially Connor Lew, who I think is their future starting center.
Me too.
And things are looking right again for Cincinnati.
The Cleveland Browns. Oh, boy. Here we go, folks. Spencer Fano with their first selection after trading down, by the way. Then Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Denzel Boston earned the badge of mine for one of my favorite fits in this class because I love him as a bigger-bodied wide receiver. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, they traded up a lot to go get him at number 58. Austin Barber, Parker Brailsford, Justin Jefferson, Joe Royer, Taylon Green, Carson Ryan. Chat's firing off all of their grades, which you guys should. Every single time that we get to a new team, fire off your grades. We would love to see all the grades from you guys as well. Connor, what'd you think of this class here for the Cleveland Browns?
Super interesting draft. And can I just say, I love that you and I spent all of rounds 2 to 7 together because we can call back to the things we were discussing in real time. And I love that you pointed this out. You were saying how when they turned their offensive line over in the pro market, it felt like more power. And then in the draft, they went with more athletic zone players in the offense. That's what you said, the hockey shift offensive lines, which is so funny. It's fascinating, though, when you look at this from the Browns. So we'll see. Obviously, they're trying to have a little versatility with their scheme. As you see from the value, you and I liked Fano. I understand there were teams and people that have concerns about him as a tackle. We believe in him as a tackle. I love that the Browns recognize they can move out of 6. They can get more capital. That's all going to factor in my grade as well and still get the player they want on the offensive line. I liked Denzel Boston better than Casey Concepcion, but what they are doing in this offense is so different that they complement each other well. What Monken has done with Zay Flowers, he could do some of those things with Concepcion. Boston gives them a real perimeter wide receiver. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, you see for both of us, just tremendous value on the defense. And then I'll tell you another one that pushed this one up for me. I like Justin Jefferson a lot, especially in this defense where he can just fly around. He's a really good athlete. I thought he stood out so much more than his teammate Deontay Lawson on tape. If Schlesinger gets hurt or even if they need another starter, Jefferson has the athleticism to be exactly that. And Carson Ryan was one of my guys in this draft compared to consensus, where it's kind of hilarious looking at it because I'm looking at, they took Joe Royer. They obviously have Harold Fannin, but I think Carson Ryan could be their tight end 2 down the road or some kind of utility player. So I really liked this draft from the Browns. I gave it a B+. I think Andrew Berry has done all the national conversation around right now is criticizing the John Lynch and James Gladstones of the world against the consensus board and who's going to win that war and everything. I don't see people giving Andrew Berry enough for, in my opinion, besides the Austin Barber pick, but to each their own. It's just one pick, and they valued him more. He seems to understand the draft and how things are going to fall and when he can acquire more capital versus when he can't. And didn't they acquire a 2027 fourth rounder from Seattle? That was the Browns, right?
Was that the Browns? Here, let me look.
I thought I factored that into my grade here as well. Yes, they got
the fourth. Yeah,
they
got
sent
the fourth
pick
round
148.
Yep,
a fifth rounder for a 2027 fourth rounder. I gave this a B+. I just think he knows how to move around the board. This roster is getting much better. You and I are rooting for Todd Monken. We are fans of his. It's going to be hard to evaluate without a surefire thing at quarterback, but the Browns did some nice work.
This is an A+ draft for me. This is the only A+ that I have. And in order to earn an A+, not only do I have to love the players that you're drafting, not only do I have to love where you are drafting them, not only do they have to be good scheme fits, but you also have to win the game of the NFL draft. They moved down from number 6 to number 9. They picked up an extra third and a fifth round pick to draft the player that they were probably going to draft at number 6 anyways, because I don't think any of the teams are going to steal him. So they draft the player that they were going to draft at 6 anyways, and they get some extra draft capital for it. They use that extra draft capital to be able to trade up a long way to go get Emmanuel McNeil-Warren as well. And you mentioned they were able to trade and get 2027 draft capital in this one as well. I think Casey Concepcion is going to become the best speed option that they have on that team. I know you can look at they've got Isaiah Bond. They have Jerry Jeudy. I think eventually Casey Concepcion's going to be the number 1 speed option on this team. Denzel Boston gives them a higher ceiling, bigger bodied receiver than they had previously. Spencer Fano, like you mentioned, we love a lot, and I think that he could play a variety of different positions on the offensive line. Justin Jefferson, I didn't do the full scouting report on him, but I did watch him when he was at Alabama. He sort of even could play a little bit of what you would have asked Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to play, with him having the neck injury and his NFL career up in the air. I think top to bottom, you got potential difference makers. The only question mark I have here in this draft is, like you mentioned, it's a little bit funny that all of the guys they added in free agency on the offensive line were like real power offensive linemen, and all the guys that they drafted were more zone blocking scheme offensive linemen. That could potentially mesh together very, very well, or maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure, but for the way that they acquired players, how they were wheeling and dealing all draft, and the roster that came together at the end for the total draft haul, this is an A+ draft for me. I think they navigated this beautifully, and they got some great players because of it. Also, Logan Fano, Spencer Fano's brother, an undrafted free agent signing, and Tyreek Sapp, a good run defending defensive end. So I think they cooked this weekend. I love how they did things.
Yeah, factoring in the UDFAs, because you see some rankings there, this would definitely move into the A range for me. I think the only thing stopping it from that is I was just lower on Barber and Concepcion than a lot of people, and even Brailsford a little bit. But the Browns, this was a really, really strong draft for them.
Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about the Cowboys
right
here next.
Yeah.
Caleb Downs, number 11 overall, a little trade up to make sure that they went to get him. Malachi Lawrence in the first round as well, after a little bit of a trade down. Jaysean Barnum in the third round at number 92. Drew Shelton, Devin Moore, LT Overton, and Anthony Smith there in the 7th round. How we feel about this one, Connor?
So something that factors into the grade, of course, is do you accomplish the mission of where you need to improve your team the most? And for Dallas, there is no denying they have drastically changed this defense over the last calendar year. And this was kind of the cherry on top of that when you get Caleb Downs. He was, in my opinion, the best defender in the draft today. Maybe some guys will evolve and develop beyond that, whether that's Arvell Reese, and some other different guys. But Downs, what a stabilizer for the back end of their defense to limit the explosive plays that they give up this year. I was very high on Malachi Lawrence as a pass rusher. He is such a unique athlete, and when you let him pin his ears back and go, he can get after the quarterback in a variety of ways and contain running quarterbacks. Let's not forget, this is a division where Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, and Jaden Daniels love to run around and make plays. Watch Malachi Lawrence chase quarterbacks in college. It is absolute cinema to watch that guy contain and get to the sideline. Jaysean Barham, you see the plus 36 right there in terms of value. I loved this guy. Now, the weird thing is, I was really excited about him as a stand-up edge at the NFL level. He played both in college. I think at off-ball linebacker, he's just okay. He's honestly so explosive, and sometimes he overshoots plays and overruns plays. So if Dallas is going to only play him there, I don't think they'll get the most out of him, but I do think he'll play a hybrid role. And then one guy I just have a feeling I'm going to regret being too low on, and I only had it that way because he's been hurt for multiple years of college, is Devin Moore. Devin Moore's tape, size, speed, ball skills is starting outside corner. It's just that he has been hurt consistently throughout college, and this was the one year where you watch it and go, okay, this is the guy we've been waiting for and we love. So for Dallas, I gave it an A- because they did such a good job accomplishing their mission on the defensive side of the ball, where this unit looks totally different.
I gave this a B+. I was between A-, B+, so I'm kind of like right there with you. What brings it down a little bit for me, I mean, getting Caleb Downs to number 11 is excellent. I mean, especially they were sitting there at number 12 and they went, no, we're not messing around here. Let's trade up to number 11. Let's make sure that we go get him. I love the aggressiveness there. Malachi Lawrence gives them some more juice on the edge, which I like. If they're playing Barham as an off-ball linebacker, I don't love that as much, but I still think there's a world where he'll do plenty of attacking the pocket. So don't love that they drafted him to be an off-ball, but I think that that's totally fine. I do like the football player. I don't love Drew Shelton, especially if they're keeping him at offensive tackle. Devin Moore, you mentioned, I think that's certainly plus value for me, and you see that on my big board, even in a vacuum. LT Overton's fine. I mean, you're drafting him late 4th round at that point. I didn't see him as a fringe top 100 player that some other people did, but the value is fine. It was 2 spots off of where I had him on my regular board. And then I'll factor in the fact that they also traded a 5th round pick for D Winters. So you look at the linebacker level and it's like, hey, at least you're getting a veteran linebacker in there and it's a little bit different for you. So B+, A-, but I do like what a lot of the Cowboys did, and certainly the splash selection of Caleb Downs is awesome, man. That's going to be a total game changer for them. So yeah, B plus A minus is sort of where I was at. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh, not giving them the A minus, just for making sure that they went to get Caleb Downs. But yeah, that's where I was at with the Cowboys.
A good reminder to all you people watching, if you're new to the show, please hit like and subscribe, especially subscribe so you don't look at that. Well over
70K. Look at you guys.
Unbelievable. As we continue to strive to grow this channel, we appreciate you guys so much for subscribing. If you are new, we don't just disappear for 5 months after the draft grades. We will be doing summer scouting and laying the ground floor across college football this entire summer. I think we'll have some other fun stuff in the works as well. Trevor.
Oh yeah. We're gonna have a blast this summer. We're gonna go through the summer scouting series like we always do, but we got some things on the list and some suggestions from you guys as well, specifically some suggestions from the NFLSE Discord, which you can find the link to the Discord in the description here of this episode. We're over 5,000 strong in that Discord, and we have a lot of fun there. And we always say it's a show of the people. So the addicts, they'll give us their ideas for what they want to hear on the show, and we definitely listen, especially during the summer. But we appreciate you guys. Denver Broncos. You know, Connor, I saw some mixed reviews here with the Denver Broncos class, so I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this group.
Well,
Tyler,
go ahead.
Tyler Onyedem, the defensive lineman from Texas A&M, he was their first selection. Jonah Coleman, who was one of your day 3 difference makers.
Yeah.
He got the badge there from you. Cage Casey also in the 4th round. Justin Jolie is one of the day 3 difference makers from me, who they got in the 5th round. And then in the 7th round, Miles Scott, Dalen Bentley, and Red Murdoch. They also signed Torian York, by the way, as a undrafted free agent. You love to see that. So this was a team that, of course, did not have a first-round pick, and I factored into this the fact that they got Jalen Waddle with a first-round pick here. But what was your grade overall? Or just give us your assessment first, and then we'll have the grade.
Yeah, if I factored in Waddle, this is an A+. But just going off of the collection of players, I mean, it was always an uphill battle because they literally didn't make a pick to the 3rd round. And as much as there's things I like about Onyedem, both as a run defender and an athlete, it was still a reach based on my board. And then they just went nuts on value, where it was some of the most impressive day 3 work of any team in this entire draft. Jonah Coleman, I'll say it over and over again, he will be leading this backfield at some point because he is just ready out of the gate. He runs hard. He gets downhill. He's got soft hands when you got to dump it off. Cage Casey, he's a technician. He's not the most physically impressive human on the offensive line, but he's played so much college football at left tackle that he is very precise with his hands, his base, and he's probably going to play more guard than tackle. But if you get into an emergency, he has enough tackle experience. How about Christmas time in Denver with Justin Jolie,
baby,
man? Yeah, this is a tight end that, you know, I want you to talk about him because I know you highlighted him, but just such a fit with Peyton. Miles Scott was underrated in this process. I don't know why he didn't get a combine invite. And then Red Murdoch being Mr. Irrelevant is just absurd. I mean, it's completely absurd to me. This guy was a downhill thumper for Buffalo. He set the NCAA record for forced fumbles over his time there. He's so physical. He's smart. I think Red Murdoch has the rare chance to be a Mr. Irrelevant spot starter at some point with his physicality. I was a fan of this draft. I gave it a B, and that's absurd when they didn't make a pick to the 3rd round. If you went on the curve of the fact that they moved the first rounder for Waddle, it's obviously an A.
Yeah, I went with a B+ for this team. Like B+, A-. This is sort of like the conversation that I was having here. I mean, you factor in the fact that they did trade a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle. I think that getting that's huge for them. The rest of the guys, I mean, I see some people in the chat saying like, man, this is a 0-starter draft. Yeah, but this is already a really good roster. And I think a lot of these players are going to be mixing into the starting lineup or at least into the rotation pretty early.
Jonah Coleman will be a starter.
Onyedem is, I think, perfect for this defensive line. Yeah. He could play nose for you. He could play 3 technique. He could play 4-eye. He could play all the different alignments that you want from an interior defensive line spot. Jonah Coleman, I think, is going to be a difference maker for this team. I think him and RJ Harvey are a really nice 1-2 duo. And then obviously we will see, you know, what J.K. Dobbins can give them as well. Cage Casey's a very versatile interior offensive lineman who's a good depth player. Jolie, I think, is great for them. I mean, they have Adam Troutman on the team still. They've got Evan Ingram, but now you have another player who to me, can play as a wingback tight end. He can play in the slot. Like, you can do a lot of different things with Justin Chole, who has some versatile receiving experience. So I think a B plus, A minus, if you're factoring in the Waddle trade, is very fair for the Broncos, where I feel like I've seen a lot of people be very low on them, be like, they didn't do anything in this draft. I think they did a lot to really help out that next wave of rotational players on a roster that's already good. And I think you certainly got to take that into account when you're kind of factoring in how they were able to navigate this class. So B plus for the Broncos. I think this is a team that, once again, one of the better rosters in the NFL, and they got deeper. They got deeper with this draft class, and I think that the floor is higher for this team, and I think that how they can sustain a long season and even getting into the playoffs was helped by the players that they drafted this weekend.
All right, Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions draft class here. They go Blake Miller at number 17 overall. This is one of my favorite fits here of any of the players that were drafted. Derek Moore goes number 44, which, by the way, I will say this. I gave this a lower grade when we were doing the draft show on BR, because I was like, man, I don't think they needed to trade up for Derek Moore. There were a handful of other pass rushers that were on the board, a couple of them that I had even ranked higher than Derek Moore, who I didn't think is a bad player. I think I had him ranked, right around number 60. So getting him at 44, it's not terrible value there for him, but I didn't think they needed to trade up. But then Lions fans correctly, like afterwards, were saying, hey, they had to get in front of the Ravens specifically because Jesse Minter, who coached him when he was at Michigan, was going to maybe snipe him from the Lions if they were going to wait. So I totally understand that does factor into it, so I'm not as harsh on that there. But anyways, Jimmy Roldo, the linebacker from Michigan, going in the 4th round. Keith Abney in the 5th. Kendrick Law in the 5th as well. Skylar Gill-Howard in the 6th. And then Tyree West, the edge rusher from Tennessee, to round things out here. They did sign Luke Goatmeyer as a undrafted free agent. Need to make sure that I let the chat know that as well. Connor, what you think of this class?
I usually love what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell do, but this one was off the rails for me. It was actually not off the rails in terms of the players they typically like. I just didn't value these players the way they did. Blake Miller, when they took him at 17, I have to stick with I think he is a starting right tackle, but I did like Maxi Honicher, Monroe Freeling, and Caleb Lomu better than him. Now, I understand not taking Lomu because Miller is a 4-year starter that's more ready to play, and the Lions need somebody ready to play, and all those guys are a little raw. So that was probably their thinking. The Miller pick was like far from my problem with this draft. I think he actually makes a lot of sense for Detroit. I do not like the Derek Moore selection at 44 at all. If that was their reasoning, I actually, that makes me like it even less because there was multiple edge players I would have taken over him in that spot, including Zion Young, who went right after. Rolder's a smart, instinctual run defender, but I thought he was a 2-down linebacker. I don't really mind where they took him. Keith Abney was my favorite pick because I think he has starting corner traits.
Mm-hmm.
I did not really value Kendrick Law is okay, but Skylar Gill-Howard and Tyree West, to me, it was early for them, specifically with Gill-Howard. He's someone that he's quick off the ball, but there's no power in his game. He was hurt this year. He didn't test well. He's a total size and length outlier on the interior. I'm kind of surprised Tyree West got picked in the draft. Once again, I think Abney could be a future starting corner. Miller will be fine in this landing spot. He'll be totally fine here. I just don't understand the Derek Moore process, and maybe I'll be proven wrong on that, but I don't think he'll live up to the billing of where he was drafted compared to the edge players on the board. Usually love what the Lions do, love what they're all about, but I gave this a C.
I gave this one a B+. I love Blake Miller. Even though I had Maxi Honicher ranked slightly ahead of where Blake Miller was on my big board, Miller is perfect for them. He started 54 straight games at Clemson. You plug him in at right tackle, he could play immediately. They needed that, right? They needed somebody that could play right away for them to move Penny Sewell over to the left side. So I think the specific player, and a player that I just really liked, I had him number 17 overall on my big board. This is right on target for where I had him and how I valued him. I thought the Jimmy Rolder pick was good linebacker depth in the 4th round. There are other linebackers that I would have considered there, but I think Jimmy Rolder was sort of around that range for any of them. So, a lot of times when you talk about early day 3 linebackers, just like, sure, pick whichever one that you feel like is going to match up your scheme, and maybe it's sort of like a football character thing that might separate some of those guys. So maybe they really love Jimmy Rolder as that 1-year starter coming out of Michigan. Keith Abney, I liked a lot. I really like Skylar Gill-Howard. That's one of my favorites, and somebody that I'm glad that Detroit took the chance on there. The Derek Moore selection, yes. Would I have rather had them take Zion Young or Gabe Akis? Sure. That's why this isn't an A for me. That's why it's a B+ for me. And you could say, like, hey, they had to trade up to get in front of the Baltimore Ravens to take their guy. Very clearly, they like Derek Moore more than those other edge rushers. That's fine. I had those other edge rushers, even power profile edge rushers, right? Zion Young, he's a power profile edge rusher. Gabe Akis, the same thing. So you can say, hey, they liked the skill set that Derek Moore brought to the table. That's totally fine. Those two I would have had over Derek Moore as well. So that is what, and it's not to say, that is not to say that like Derek Moore cannot be a good pick. There are just other edge rushers, even in that classification of skill set, that I would have rather had over him. So that's why it's not an A for me, but I really liked a lot of the rest of what the Lions did here. So I'm giving this draft a B+.
All right, staying in the division, we got Green Bay right after him.
Green Bay Packers. This is always where we start to sweat. What the grade's going to be here for the Packers. Brandon Cisse, their first selection in the second round, because obviously they traded their first round pick for Micah Parsons. I didn't really factor that one in here. Maybe I should have, but I didn't really factor that in. Chris McClellan, number 77 overall in the third round. Then in the fourth round, they got denied Dennis Sutton. Fifth round, Jacob Burton, the interior offensive lineman from Kentucky. Sixth round, a pair of sixth-round picks, Damani Jackson, the corner from Alabama, and Trey Smack, the kicker from Florida. So Peter gave it an F, but Peter's a Bears fan, so he might be a little bit biased.
On Brand, just a tiny bit. Cisse, I've just been low man on him. He is aggressive and physical against the run. He's a good athlete. He's got enough size. He just has no awareness and instincts right now, and he's a 20-year-old, so I get that side of it as a cover player, and he does not get his head around. So he's a projection and a developmental player that Green Bay has hit on guys like that. They've missed on guys like that. It's just what they do. They love taking guys that are more of projections, and sometimes they strike gold, and sometimes they end up very frustrated. Chris McClellan, as much as I was lower on him where they took him, I think it makes a lot of sense for Green Bay. You get alignment versatility up front. He had some pass rush juice, which really, really stood out to me. I did like Big Citrus a lot better than him, and they passed on Big Citrus for McClellan, so I factored that in. Denied Dennis Sutton. He does not play to his athleticism, but he was a real fit for this team. As you see, that's where I thought they got value, because they lost Kingsley Enagbare in free agency, and he could do a lot of the things that they asked Kingsley to do. So that was a really ideal fit. They always get the most out of guys like Jacob Burton from Kentucky, these interior offensive linemen that play with a lot of power and have some versatility. They always seem to find one on day 2 or day 3. So I know Green Bay will probably make me look like an idiot on that one. Damani Jackson just never became the shutdown corner we were all hoping, since he was a recruit and at USC to Alabama. I think Alabama actually sat him down for a little bit this year as he struggled at times. And then you take a kicker. So I wrote in my write-up that use the first-round pick in a package for Micah Parsons. That was a great move, but it makes it an uphill battle because you have less players in this class to earn a high grade. But I gave this a C+, because I'm not a Cisse believer, and I might look really, really foolish for that in the end, but we're going to see.
See, I like Cisse, so I think that's
the difference.
I like Cisse. 3 of their first 4 picks I liked. And when I talk about how they don't have a first-round pick, Cisse is somebody that was plus value from where I had him on the draft board. I believe in him in the NFL. I believe that you can turn him into a really nice corner. Chris McClellan, I think, is a really good fit for them. Sutton is as well, even though, like I said, I'm with you. He never really played to his athletic potential. I do kind of think that he's a scheme fit for them. I definitely think that Jacob Burton's a scheme fit for them. He can play center or guard if they need it. Damani Jackson's just sort of like this is a Packers kind of a corner with the size and the length and everything. And then they're drafting a kicker in the 6th round, but it is a Florida kicker, so I gotta make sure that I give the salute and plus points for that one. I give this a B. I gave this draft a B because I believe in the 3 out of the first 4 players that they drafted here. I think that this really comes down to, do you like Brandon Cisse? Do you like Chris McClellan? The answer to both of those questions is yes for me. So that's why I ended up giving it a B here.
All right, Houston Texans.
The Houston Texans, let's see. They drafted Keelan Rutledge in the first round. Then they moved up for Caden McPounder, who got one of your badges here.
Oh, yeah.
Marlon Klein at number 59.
As we all expected.
Of course. Fabechi Wiwu, the interior offensive lineman from Oklahoma in the 4th round. Wade Woodez in the 4th round as well. Kamari Ramsey in the 5th. Lewis Bond in the 6th. And then Aiden Fisher in the 7th. How do we feel?
So it's time to McPound, which is always awesome. Caden McDonald was one of my favorite fits. That's why he's highlighted. I was so pumped up when they picked him. They moved up for McPounder, which was, the Texans are a fast, physical team. Keelan Rutledge is a brawler in the run game. Caden McDonald is going to be such a good player for the middle up front of this defense. Marlon Klein was one of the most wild picks of the entire NFL draft.
Yeah.
One of the most wild picks. And once again, I'm not even directly calling the Texans crazy, because seeing what Jacksonville did and seeing what other teams did and hearing after it that the tight ends were all just going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is where the teams were compared to the media. I don't have to agree, by the way, that Marlon Klein is worth the 59th overall pick in the draft. Wee Woo is a guy that I love his story. Walked on at North Texas, became a starter at Oklahoma. Hard worker, really, really strong. I like the depth that he provides in the 4th round. Aiden Fisher down the board. I get it. He's not athletic and he lacks length, and he just always overcomes that from instincts and being tough and in the fight, where if he hung on a roster, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not surprised. It's just what Aiden Fisher does. He just finds a way all the time. I give this draft a B-, with it being heavily carried by McPounder and Rutledge, because they're going to be real players in the trenches for this team. I just wish they got somebody with more value at 59. I mean, it could have been a draft. It's just so off the wall, and you're going to hear this criticism of multiple teams. I just don't get it. I hope Marlon Klein develops into the player that they're dreaming of, but we've watched a lot of him over the years, and he's still developmental. But yeah, it just got really weird after 2 great picks, in my opinion, besides Fabechi Wiwu.
Yeah, I initially had it a B+, but I give it a B, to be honest with you. I like the Keelan Rutledge pick. I like the Caden McDonald pick. I like that they... Honestly, I even like that they traded up to get both of those guys. Like, yeah, I like that they identified them and they said, these guys are scheme fits. They're going to be difference makers for us. I mean, going up to get Caden McDonald, I think this is a great team fit for Caden McDonald. I think he's going to be complementing this defensive line really, really well. It's funny because we also talked about Peter Woods, a potential fit for this team, because it's more of an attacking style defense. But now I think that they're going to have the ability to use Caden McDonald to take up more blocks to really keep the other guys free at the defensive line level and the linebacker level. So I think this gives them a new dimension on their defensive line. The Marlon Klein pick, was just crazy to me. Crazy. And
wild.
I think that's going to be a major talking point of basically like every single draft class that drafted a tight end, right? I mean, we talked about that with the Chicago Bears, where I go, damn, okay, well, I think Stam Rouse was kind of a little overdrafted with where he went. But you look at the fact that Klein and Borkercher go before him, and I think the Bears almost, I don't want to say panicked, but basically said, okay, well, all bets are off. Who knows when all these tight ends are, what are we going to get, 12 tight ends that go in the top 80 at this point? So I don't love that pick, but I think Wee Woo's a solid pick for them. I would have rather had a handful of linebackers over Woodaz. I actually like this landing spot for Kamari Ramsey. I think that D'Amico Ryans is going to make the most out of him.
We've seen them do that before.
I know. So I do like that a good amount. I like getting Aiden Fisher in the 7th round. Colin the Wright, they had as an undrafted free agent, to shout them out as well. But I think this is a B. And I wish I could be higher on this class, but the Klein pick was just so off the wall, man. I'm with you. I just kind of... Maybe they'll all prove us wrong with these tight ends, but it's hard to not look at it right now, and I think you put it best. I wish there's more value to get out of number 55 than where Marlon Klein currently is right now as a player.
That takes us to the Indianapolis Colts.
Chris Ballard, he's at it again, folks. We've got 2 badges on this one. We've got
the original Wrigler
of your we've got one of your favorite fits overall, and then we have one of my day 3 difference makers here. You chose AJ Halsey, and I, of course, chose Deion Burks, who was a whopping plus 186 for where he was selected versus where he was on my big board. They didn't have a first-round pick because obviously that was part of the Sauce Gardner trade this past season. But they did draft C.J. Allen in the second round, A.J. Halsey in the third, Jalen Farmer in the fourth, Bryce Betcher in the fourth, George Gumbs Jr., the edge rusher out of Florida, at 156 in the fifth round, sixth rounder Caden Curry, seventh rounder Seth McGowan, and then I mentioned Deion Burks, the wide receiver from Oklahoma, going at 254. Travesty, an absolute travesty how that happened. Connor, there's a lot of green on that screen from value with what Chris Ballard did. What'd you think?
Look at all that green. I'm actually upping this grade from my written grade, which was still very high, but I'll get to that in a second. CJ Allen, they need to get younger at linebacker. At 53, sign me up all day. Gets everybody lined up, good instincts against the run. When he was healthy, he looked like a totally different player compared to the end of the season. Halsey gets my badge for one of my favorite fits. Plays with an attitude, physical, 220 pounds, takes away the football in the air, elite instincts, great situational awareness. Jalen Farmer, I think he's going to be a starter at guard, can just absolutely forklift defenders off the line of scrimmage. Bryce Betcher, drafted in multiple sports now, MLB draft pick of the Astros, plays like an absolute maniac. Gums, developmental edge rusher, who's very late to the position, came to college as a pass catcher. And then they get 3 real players from 214 to 254. Caden Curry, I get he has no length, but the effort he plays with on the edge helped him make plays. Seth McGowan can be your RB2, and then Deion Burks can be a great backup to Josh Downs in the slot. So it's just so hard to get this amount of value when you traded away your first-round pick. I'm giving this an A-. Ballard needed a draft like this, man. He really, really did. It's been a weird couple of years for the Colts, and then they felt so close this year, and then they got hit with injuries after the deadline that sunk them. But to get this many starters without a first rounder is very, very hard to do.
Yeah, this is an easy A for me for what they were able to do here. You don't have a first rounder and you come away with all of these names. It felt like Chris Ballard just got plus value all the way around. A lot of teams were, and I get it, this is how the draft goes, right? You have some teams that are really focused on just drafting off of their boards, the Jaguars, which we'll get to next, the next team here. And I think that if enough teams do that at enough certain positions, Chris Ballard has shown that he's the sort of GM to sort of sit back, let the draft unfold as it may, and he goes, all right, fine, you're going to let this player get to me. I'm going to draft him here. And fortunately for him, that basically came at all the positions of need as well. They needed linebacker badly, more than one selection, and they got CJ Allen, and then they got Bryce Betcher. They needed some new interior offensive linemen to believe in there. They got Jalen Farmer. They needed some new defensive linemen as well. I kind of wish they went interior defensive line, but still, getting George Gums and Caden Curry there in round 5 and round 6, that's great value. I think Seth McGowan is a legit running back for this team and can really make this team and get into that running back rotation. And certainly Deion Burks, I mean, that's some serious speed that they did not have on the team coming from the slot previously. I think that Josh Downs is great, but I mean, Deion Burks is a different type of athlete, I think. So difference makers everywhere and at specific positions of need. I think that Chris Ballard navigated this entire draft beautifully, especially for a team that might have been sweating a little bit, not having a first-round pick, knowing that they really, really had to have to hit the gas pedal in 2026 with all of the players that they've acquired.
Yeah, the Colts, man, I can't wait to watch these guys fly around for them this year. Ballard really got back to his SEC roots and just said, you know what, I'm gonna go with what got me this job, and I think it'll pay off for them.
Dude, and even Jalen Farmer's somebody who, like, if you had to plop him in to play right away in the NFL right now, you might not love it, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. I'm saying if you had to plop him into the NFL right now, there's some inconsistencies with his game. But this is a high ceiling player, and he doesn't have to start right away. They've got offensive linemen that are there, but I think that Farmer just raises the ceiling of what that offensive line could be now in Indianapolis.
All right, next up.
The Jacksonville Jaguars, everybody. Whole lot of red on this one. Nate Borkircher was their first. Connor, I totally forgot that that wasn't just a pick for them in the second round. That's how they kicked it off. That was their first selection of the draft.
Imagine sitting down as a Jags fan and be like, I've been waiting 2 days for this.
Nate Borkircher, the tight end at Texas A&M, goes at number 56 as their first selection. Albert Regis, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M, in the third round. Emmanuel Pregnon in the third round as well. And then Jalen Husky, the safety from Maryland, at number 100 as the final pick of the third round. Wesley Williams in the fourth. Tanner Koziel in the fifth. Josh Cameron in the sixth. CJ Williams, the wide receiver from Stanford, in the sixth. Zach Durfee, the edge rusher from Washington, at 233 in the seventh round. And then Parker Hughes, the linebacker from Middle Tennessee State, at number 240. They also signed Joey Aguilar and Jamari Taylor as notable undrafted free agents. Who, if you put those guys players in at the seventh round, I would have been like, oh, okay, nice job. Good.
Yeah.
What'd you think, Connor?
So I know everybody in the chat is spamming F. Emmanuel Pregnon alone on this board is going to prevent that from happening.
I don't know about that, partner.
Oh, boy. So Borkircher, I noticed this like wraparound reaction now from people where they're like, well, Borkircher's actually better than people realize. And I think that's correct. I think when you turn on the tape, you understand that the offense isn't going to get him a lot of throws and rhythm, and he's tough and he's physical. But let's also not lose sight of that he's going to be a 25-year-old rookie that didn't test well and hasn't been productive in how many years of college? At 56 overall. Like we don't need to do the well, actually, for the 56th overall pick in the draft. You want to do it for 180? Okay, I understand. Mm-hmm. So, Regis, hard hat run defender. You and I really liked him. You were really early on Regis. I think Pregnon's a starter at guard. I have no idea what happened with the next three picks. I really don't. Husky is a hybrid corner safety that hasn't really found consistency at either. Wesley Williams was a really good
Which they already have, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, and they have this player. Wesley Williams was a good run defender in college, but and he generated a lot of pressure, but the reason he did not turn a lot of that large amount of pressures into sacks is because he doesn't have the athleticism or the speed to finish more plays. That's only going to get harder at the next level, and he has no length, and he tested really poorly. I think he's going to be an okay run-stopping 3-4 defensive end as his highest end outcome. Koziel, it's just I get it, he has ball skills, but when you're a tight end that cannot be put on the field to block in any capacity, I don't know how you're on the field at the NFL level. I like Josh Cameron. He could play special teams. He tracks the deep ball. He's got a wide frame. He was a player that I really, really liked in this draft. And then I thought I saw a Reef post that both CJ Williams and Parker Hughes were in the late 600s on the consensus board.
On the consensus board, yeah.
Someone else was like, that's 2 whole drafts. Like, that's doing the NFL draft more than twice. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't evaluate CJ Williams and Parker Hughes. So maybe James Gladstone knows something that the people up here don't. Shout out to the Jets fan in Radio City that was very confused once upon a time after they did something stupid. They put a microphone in front of this Jets fan's face at Radio City after they did something dumb, and he just goes, obviously the Jets know something that the people up here don't. All-timer, if you ever want to look that one up. But bring the draft back to Radio City. I mean, James Gladstone is an absolute maniac. He's either going to live on the edge and be the smartest man in the room, or he's going to go out his way. I gave this a D+.
I completely agree with what you said there. I gave this draft an F. And if this comes out to be a great contributing draft for Jacksonville, I will be the first one to put my hand up and say, hey, you know what? This is a draft where I absolutely sort of have to look at the value of where I had guys and how you go about plans. But we did this too many times with Belichick drafts. Where
you're right. Where he must know. We all just went, oh yeah, like the greatest coach of all time is obviously going to draft these players that he knows are going to be great, and a lot of them were very bad, very bad. So I think that even for the players that they got that I like Albert Regis, I think is going to be a great rotational defensive lineman for them. Yeah.
The best case scenario for me with this draft is you maybe have one starter. Maybe. and it's Emmanuel Pregnon. Like, there's a world where Emmanuel Pregnon becomes your starting guard. I like Albert Regis a lot. I don't really know if he's ever going to be a starting defensive tackle for you. A great rotational defensive tackle? Yes, and I totally see the value there. Borkircher, I think that you drafted him to free up Brenton Strange and to be a good backup plan if Brenton Strange gets hurt. I can see the value there, but like you mentioned, this is an older prospect who's been around college football a while, does not have any receiving production at all whatsoever, and that was your first pick. That was your first selection of this draft. This was so against the grain in so many ways that I just have to say that I did not like this at all. I did not like how they went about this process at all whatsoever. And this is one of those drafts that if it's a great draft, I'll just go, I was wrong. 100%. Yeah. I was wrong.
Yeah.
There's no excuses for it. There's no, well, this happened, whatever. I will make excuses for it. If this is a great draft, I'll be wrong. But I look at this draft right now after draft weekend and I go, boy, you better hope a lot of these players pan out the way that you specifically thought that they were going to, because I don't think most of the rest of the NFL saw a lot of these players the way the Jags did. So like you said, he's either a genius or this is going to be real bad.
So let me have an old man yelling at the cloud moment here, because this drove me freaking crazy when Robert Saleh was with the Jets. I am so sick of GMs and coaches that think they are above the NFL Combine. You are not smart enough to skip the biggest NFL draft event of the year. You're not. You need to be there. You need to be talking to everybody you can. You need to be meeting with all of these players. You need to be boots on the ground in it. Why would you not? What is the reason to not? If you had a family issue or you had anything like that, I totally get it. But I read his quote of why they didn't, and he's just trusting the process and their department and everything. And I get, like, he's a really smart guy, and I'm a huge Liam Cohen fan. I think Liam Cohen is awesome.
Me too.
But the GM of the team has to go to the NFL Combine. And if you're wrong about this, that's going to come back to you on this.
I wouldn't say that Bill Belichick was a good role model for how he was a general manager. And that's the way that Bill Belichick was a general manager. Not going to the Combine, picking off of a board that was 30 players deep, and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I hated it. I hated this Jags draft. And like I said, if it's good, and I'm with you, I have a lot of faith in Liam Cohen. So maybe Liam Cohen.
Listen, no, here's the crazy
maybe
thing.
Liam Cohen, he makes it work, and I can see a reality. But like I said, if these players work out, I'll put my hand up and tell you I was wrong. But right now, after the draft, I hated it.
Their roster is awesome. Their coach is awesome. Their quarterback looks like he has tapped into being the player we expect him to be. I think the Jags are going to be really, really good, which makes this even more frustrating, in my opinion.
I'm with you. Kansas City. Kansas City's the next team that we got here. Mansour Delane at number 6 overall. A little trade up to get to that point. Peter Woods, the back end of the first round. R. Mason Thomas, your boy. Jaden Kennedy. Emmett Johnson in the 5th. Cyrus Allen in the 5th. Your boy as well. You get
your boy draft.
This is actually your boy draft.
My longest boy ever.
Especially on day 3. Garrett Nussmeier at 249. What are we doing? How'd you feel about this draft?
Pretty dang good, man. Pretty dang good. I mean, Veach really seemed to, and of course you have more capital, which helps, but Veach had to really, really dig deep, because this is Patrick Mahomes era part 2 now, where so many of the players that they were a contender with for so long are aging out or retired or not on the roster or getting to the end. And this is a great way to kind of turn into that phase. Delane, we know what he can do in man coverage for Spags. Same with Jaden Kennedy out of the slot, who is one of my guys. Peter Woods, man, if he can get close to 2024 form as that disruptive defensive tackle, and you took him at 29, it's not like he went that early. It was just a smidge early. R. Mason Thomas, he gives them an element as a rusher that they don't have. They have guys with power and edge setting, but R. Mason Thomas has that momentum and speed and bend. I love Emmett Johnson as a pass catching running back. Cyrus Allen is one of my day 3 impact guys. He just gets open. And I think when Cyrus Allen goes through training camp and goes through the preseason, he's going to turn a lot of heads. And people are going to be like, we're going to have to play this guy sometimes because he's just a polished receiver for us that's generating separation. And then you get the Nuss bus at round 7. And it's interesting what happened with Nussmeier in this draft. But this is a great place for him to develop over time, hopefully into a QB2.
I like this draft, man.
I love this draft. I gave it an A.
Okay, you gave it a straight A. I'll give this an A-. I gave this draft an A- here. I actually like that they were aggressive to go up and get Mansour Delane. But you know what I liked more than that? I love the fact that Brett Veach was a little bit different this year because I mentioned this in the mock draft episode that we had before the draft. Kansas City, at least since 2022, which is the research that I had, that I felt confident about going back to just 2022, had not drafted a player in the first round that they had not had extensive time with, top 30 visits, whatever it was, at all. All 3 of those, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So it was 4. So 4 drafts, they had done that. It was reported, or wasn't reported, they never met with Delane. And afterwards, Brett Veach was like, yeah, we had to hide how much we like this guy. We did not want anybody on our trail of how much we like this guy. And so I think that's a salute. That's a brilliant job. I love that. I'm going to give you credit for that. I like Peter Woods in this front. We talked about how I wouldn't love him on every single team as a first-round pick, but I really like him in this defensive front.
Yeah.
It's going to be an attacking style. I like the rotation of him and Chris Jones and Omar Norman-Lott. I love that they went with R. Mason Thomas and Jaden Kennedy. These are 2 players who aren't necessarily built the way that a traditional Spags corner and defensive lineman are built, but I actually think that a little bit of what's different is going to be good for this team. So I like both of those players, and I like their fit with this team and how they're a little bit different here. I thought Emmett Johnson was good value. I like the player. I wonder if it would have been better suited to get somebody with a little bit more straight line speed, because I felt like that's really what was missing from this team, that sort of long explosiveness. So maybe Damone Claiborne would have been a better selection there. I think he was on the board at the time at 161. I got to go back and make sure, but I'm pretty sure he was. No offensive line pick, but hey, I guess Chiefs fans were right. They think that offensive line is good to go. So they think that their offensive line is good to go, but the rest of the draft I did like. So I gave this an A- here for Kansas City.
Yeah, really good job by the Chiefs as they kind of enter a new era with their roster.
The Las Vegas Raiders, John Spytek, at it again here.
Your boy.
You gave the Jermon McCoy selection one of your day 3 difference makers badges here.
I know it's kind of feels too easy if he's healthy, but
yeah, it's a little. I mean, you're cheating a little
cheated
bit here, but that's all right. Fernando Mendoza at the tops, Traden Stukes in the 2nd round, Kieran Crawford and Trey Zune in the 3rd, Jermon McCoy in the 4th, Mike Washington in the 4th, Dalton Johnson, the safety from Arizona, in the 5th, Hezekiah Massis, the corner from California, in the 5th. And then Malik Benson, the wide receiver from Oregon, as well as Brandon Cleveland, the defensive tackle from NC State, in the 7th. Notable undrafted free agent signings. My boy, Chase Roberts, the wide receiver out of BYU, which
nice.
I love that
Me
pickup
too.
from them. And then they also got Roman Hemby, the other running back from Indiana, as an undrafted free agent. Connor, what'd you think?
Good call on the UDFAs. I had a 5th round grade on Roberts at 179.
Dude, yeah.
Roberts
was awesome.
I think he'll make the team. I really think he'll make the team. As for the draft, you look at the top, it's very steady Eddie in the beginning. It's okay, you got Fernando Mendoza, who was totally worth that pick. Traden Stukes, who I think can do a lot of different things in the secondary, despite just being kind of the slot cover guy for Arizona. It's funny, you got his teammate Dalton Johnson, who was always around the ball. Kieran Crawford, good first step. Twitch as a rusher, very raw as a run defender, but he didn't start playing football until I think senior year of high school. So there's still more to tap into there. Trey Zune, I thought he was going to play center, and then the Raiders take him. So I'm a little confused by that one, but I don't think it was egregious. You got to take the swing on Jermon McCoy. It's well worth it there at 101. I like getting a big back to be the 2nd stringer to Genty, especially Mike Washington at 122. I valued him closer to the top 100, obviously, right there. And then Malik Benson gives you a vertical threat. Brandon Cleveland can 2-gap for you. It's not pretty with Brandon Cleveland. He's not some dynamic athlete or anything, but he he's a lunch pail player. Like, he'll just take on blockers and try to hold the fort and clog space. So I think the Raiders did a really good job. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel with this draft after they got their quarterback. I gave it a B+, but the B+ not factoring in how much I love the Chase Roberts and Roman Hemby UDFA signings.
I'm a big fan of this draft.
Yeah.
I went with an A- here. I think they got a ton of difference makers. I think John Spytek's doing a great job. I love that they took the chance on McCoy. I love that they got aggressive to trade up one spot to make sure they were the team that started out the 4th round by taking a chance on him. I think Washington is really good depth at the right range. I know a lot of people talked about Mike Washington as like, oh, like let's take him, in the 80s or 70s or something. I wasn't that high on him, but this is good value for where I had him on my board, and they needed somebody who is a legitimate backup to Ashley Genty, so Genty wasn't taking 400 touches a game. I like Hezekiah Masses. That was plus value for me. I think Dalton Johnson's a solid player. I didn't get to the full scouting report on him, but I saw a little bit of him as I was watching Traden Stukes and Genesis Smith. I love Trey Zune as a versatile interior offensive lineman who will probably just start as that swing backup, but then could potentially be a starter for them at some point. Stukes is awesome. Fernando Mendoza was the obvious. Kieran Crawford was drafted right around the spot that I wanted him to be at. The only reason why I didn't give this a flat out A is because no defensive tackle until round 7 was pretty surprising for me.
That hurt my grade for sure.
But here's the thing is, again, like I was trying to be fair to say, hey, they didn't draft a defensive tackle. And I tried to sort of investigate like, okay, but where would I have drafted a defensive tackle for them? And the only realistic spot that I would have taken a different player over a defensive tackle was McClellan and Big Citrus were still on the board at 67. So you could have gone defensive tackle at 67, but I do still like the Crawford pick. So if I'm subbing out a pick I like for a pick I might have liked a little bit better, I can't be too harsh on it. So that's why I ended up giving it an A-. I would have liked to see them get a defensive tackle, but I think that you can get the kind of defensive tackle that they need, which is more of those guys who can hold the line of scrimmage. Those players do come around more often. So I think there's a world where you can either pick one up maybe in training camp, maybe at the trade deadline, or even next offseason as you're continuing to build your team. So A- for me here. I really like what John Spytek is building there for the Raiders.
Los Angeles Chargers next up.
The Los Angeles Chargers. They got my boy Akeem Mesidor at number 22. Jake Slaughter then the second round at number 63, who they talked about, if I saw correctly, like him being a versatile interior offensive lineman for them to play guard or center. Brennan Thompson in the 4th round, Travis Burke in the 4th round, Genesis Smith in the 4th round. And then Nick Barrett, the defensive tackle from South Carolina in the 5th. 6th rounders, Logan Taylor, the guard from Boston College, and then Alex Harkey, the guard from Oregon. Notable undrafted free agent signings. They signed Nadeem Tucker, and they also signed Isaiah World. So
nice.
Just offensive lineman galore here for the Los Angeles Chargers. What'd you think, Connor?
Yeah, if you're Isaiah World's agent, why are you sending him here?
Don't know.
Well, maybe they had a plan for him with the injury. That's the only thing I could think of, because that's got to be a big pitch to him. But
perhaps.
Definitely interesting. But either way, good for the Chargers, who just attacked O-line depth over and over and over again.
Mm.
I mean, of course, you have the Mike McDaniel, Brennan Thompson pick. No surprise there. Just give me as much speed as I can get. I like Mesidor for this team.
Me too.
Pro-ready hands. He could play all 3 downs for you. Obviously, they needed another edge pass rusher, as Khalil Mack is still good, but getting older. So that made a lot of sense to me. Genesis Smith, as much as, we really cooled on him because of the tackling issues, it's almost like he felt too far, because he still has range and ball skills and can help in coverage if you can somehow iron out the lack of physicality as a tackler. So I'd throw with the Chargers. It's not flashy. This draft lacks upside, but this approach might be what they need, because what wrecked them last year was not high-end talent. It's that they got injured, specifically on the offensive line. I gave it a C+, which might seem harsh. I thought it was an okay draft, but it was tailored more to what sunk them last year, and I understand that strategy.
I think this is a big raise the floor of the team sort of a draft. And for that, I think that it was solid. So I gave this a B grade.
I think that's fair.
I would have taken Pregnon over Slaughter, and
So I don't like the plan on that. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think I like Slaughter as a player, and
I like
very
him as a
clearly,
center.
very clearly they loved Slaughter. But you did just sign Biotish. Maybe they signed Biotish because they're like, hey, we want to make a splash on the interior offensive line. Maybe they don't love Biotish as a scheme fit for McDaniel. I don't know.
That's not a good plan.
Well, I know it's not a good plan,
It's
but it's
expensive, bad scheme fit.
It is, but I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, and it's like they needed to do something on the interior offensive line. So maybe they were like, hey, he's one of the most talented ones that's out there. Let's bring him onto the team. Maybe they just love Slaughter more as a scheme fit and even maybe as their potential starter at center eventually. I don't know. Because if you're drafting Slaughter to play guard, I would have rather had Pregnon to play guard for you. So I would have rather just drafted Pregnon there. The rest of the draft, I don't think it's guys that are really going to start for you. But Genesis Smith, for as much as he has tackling issues, at least he is more of a coverage safety where I think a lot of the guys that they have now, like Elijah Molden, RJ Mickens, Tony Jefferson, like I think all those guys are more strong safety type of safeties. And Genesis Smith at least is more of a free safety type of a player. So that's a little bit different. He can get into that rotation. But like, yeah, Travis Burke, Logan Taylor, Alex Harkey, Isaiah World, like they're just, give me O-linemen. Like, do not let last year happen ever again. We're going to make sure that we have offensive linemen, and we're going to overdraft the amount of offensive linemen that we might quote unquote need, because we're going to make sure that it's never an issue like it was the previous season. So I gave this one a B because to me, it was much more about raising the floor, especially if guys start to go out. Like guys get hurt again. You have other players who can now step in. I think that of Brendan Thompson as well, the wide receiver from Mississippi State. So Mesidor was the impact player for me. The rest of it, I think, was just shoring up the depth to make sure that you can survive a long season and make a longer road into the playoff.
All right, so the other LA team,
the Los Angeles Rams,
made a lot of noise. Ty Simpson pick at the top, Trevor.
Yeah, we've got 5 selections here from the Los Angeles Rams. Ty Simpson, number 13 overall. Max Clare, number 61 in the second round. Keegan Trost, the offensive lineman from Missouri at number 93. CJ Daniels, the wide receiver from Miami at 197. And Tim Keenan, your boy, getting the badge there, the day 3 difference maker at 232. What'd you have as a grade here for this one, Connor?
I had a C-, which I know I gave out the badge for Keenan because he's one of my guys, and I think he can really, really be the perfect player to learn behind Poona Ford.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a Super Bowl contender that drafted for the future with a top 15 pick. So
not just top 15 pick. Literally every selection.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
I mean, who makes a difference?
You're absolutely right. Like, is Claire playing over any of their tight ends right away?
No, he's tight end 5. He's tight end 5 on this team. Keegan Trost is not playing on this team next year unless somebody gets hurt. And even if he does, he's not a scheme fit.
Yeah, it's a C- because as much as I like Claire, I love Tim Keenan. They didn't have a lot of picks.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like the process for Ty Simpson at all. The Rams, in my opinion, need to do everything they can to floor it and get better to win a Super Bowl next year, and they almost did none of that. I was looking at this draft, and I was asking myself, I was like, would I trade all of these picks to go up and get any of the guys that went in the top 10? And the answer is yes.
Of course.
I'd rather just not take any of these guys, use all of the picks, and go get one of the guys that went in the top 10.
I gave this draft a D, and the only thing that saves it from being an F, in my opinion, is the fact that I do like Ty Simpson.
Right, that's the hard part of this.
I think that Ty Simpson is a good quarterback. I have said this throughout the entire process. I think that he can win games in this league. I think it's a good scenario for him to go sit behind Matthew Stafford and get to work with Sean McVay. Obviously, I think any young quarterback would love that, not just, independent of Ty Simpson. But the problem is that you're in a Super Bowl window.
Yep.
You're going for a Super Bowl. None of these players are playing for you. And if they are, it's not nearly as meaningful as you wish that it could have been. 13th overall, you could have had Reuben Bain. You could have had Reuben Bain Jr.
It's pretty wild to think about.
On that defensive line, wreaking havoc as you are trying to go win a Super Bowl. And you picked a player who, best case scenario, 0 snaps this year. And who knows? Maybe Matthew Stafford's back is all good to go. Maybe they're going to win a Super Bowl next year. Maybe they're not, but maybe he's coming back the year after. Now we're halfway through Ty Simpson's rookie contract.
Yeah.
I saw somebody, and I'm not going after Jeremy Fowler for this because I think Jeremy Fowler does a great job reporting on the NFL. Jeremy's awesome. But he wrote in his article about the Los Angeles Rams, and after they had selected Ty Simpson, there was a quote from somebody at the end of the article that said, if Ty Simpson never plays a snap for you, his rookie deal, he didn't even say rookie year, his rookie deal, that's deemed as a success. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's not how the draft works.
How did we get there?
That is not how any of this works.
It's like saying the sky is red.
That is a complete failure of an understanding of where your quarterback's timeline is if that happens. Complete failure. So, look, it's kind of the same conversation that we have with Jacksonville. I hate the draft. I love the coach.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Sean McVay
and I love the roster.
Sean McVay can turn chicken shit into a Michelin star a 3-star Michelin
the
chicken
hibachi
salad
volcano.
plate. Right, essentially, yes.
I'll stand up and clap if Sean McVay did the hibachi act.
So there's a world where all of this works out, but I could not dislike the thought process here of this draft anymore. I just hate the fact that they said, hey, we're going to be unbelievably aggressive. We're going to trade 29. We're going to get Trent McDuffie. We're all in. And then we're going to pick a player at number 13 that plays 0 snaps for us this year. I don't love it. I don't love the split strategy.
What would you set? Say you knew you're getting a full season of Stafford. What would you set the total snaps played in 2026 for this draft class at?
Well, Claire's going to play more, but like here's the thing. I don't even think that Trost is a scheme fit for this team. Trost to me is much more of a lighter zone blocking offensive lineman. And McVay, now maybe there's a world where McVay was kind of on the cutting edge of going from the mid and outside zone rush game to being one of the first teams to go back to power between the middle. Perhaps there's a world where he goes, no, okay, now we're going back. And maybe in 2 years, Keegan Trost ends up being the ideal offensive lineman for them. So maybe that's the case as well, because a lot of this draft was about seeing to the future. But you draft Max Clare, Colby Parkinson, and Davis Allen are free agents next offseason, but you still have Terrence Ferguson and Tyler Higbee. So Max Clare is in a 5-man tight end rotation this year. And then he will enter into a 3-man tight end rotation the following year. I love Max Clare. Outside of injuries, I don't really see the impact from this class at all from the Rams. Peter said 16-man personnel. Yeah, I mean, that's maybe that's what McVay sees. Maybe McVay's on the cutting edge in that regard.
Everyone's a tight end.
Okay, next team.
Yes.
Miami Dolphins.
Holy volume, 13-player class. Nothing screams, we hate our roster.
Okay, so number 12 overall is Caden Proctor. Number 27, Chris Johnson, which I identified as one of my favorite fits here, and I'll get to that more in a second. Jacob Rodriguez in the second round. Third round, we had 3 picks. They were third-round maxing here. Caleb Douglas, the wide receiver out of Texas Tech. Will Kazmarek, the tight end from Ohio State. Chris Bell, the wide receiver from Louisville. Fourth round, we had 2 picks. Trey Moore, the linebacker from Texas. And then Kyle Lewis, another badge for me. One of my favorite day 3 difference makers here. Michael Taff, Kevin Coleman, Sidhu Traore, the tight end from Mississippi State. And then in the 6th round, it was DJ Campbell. Bring it home with a little Max Llewellyn, the edge rusher from Iowa. Connor, what do we think?
I mean, man.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. UDFA signings.
They stay busy. They got my guy, Renee Conga.
They got your guy, Renee Conga. They signed Mason Rieger. They signed Le'Veon Moss. They got Lewis Moore.
They want a whole new team.
Dude, Jeff Hafley's the man. This rules. Jeff Hafley's like one of those, I can't think of a good example right now. But Jeff Hafley's like one of those like coaches or bosses or something who's like new, who like walks in and he's disciplinary and he's basically like, you guys are all morons. And he basically just cleans the entire staff and it's all brand new, and it's the people who weren't starters before, and now it's kind of like Coach Carter, right? It's kind of how Coach Carter starts, right? He walks in, he's like, oh, this is how we're going to do things. The starters leave the gym, and then I can't remember which character he's like, dude, those are our 2 leading scorers from last year. And Coach Carter just looks at him and he goes, guess we're going to have 2 new leading scorers this year, aren't we?
That's essentially
That's essentially what Jeff Hafley is doing here. Yes.
All right, so the Dolphins. So many new players and a bit of a roller coaster draft. I gave it a B because there's definitely some where it's like you look at Proctor's a big swing where Chris Johnson's more of a floor pick. I like Jacob Rodriguez a lot for the middle of their defense. I like Chris Bell pick and Kevin Coleman Jr. so much better than Caleb Douglas, who was the first receiver they took. So that was a little weird. I felt like they could have gotten a much better player with the 75th overall pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious the plan for Trey Moore because I actually thought he'd play a little better in space at the next level than on the edge. They got Kyle Lewis to do that. I love the Kyle Lewis pick.
Yeah.
So they've totally revamped their linebacker room. They've totally revamped their wide receiver room. Max Llewellyn could be a DPR. You take a chance on a DPR at 238. Will Kazmarek, I really like as a wide tight end, like a on the line of scrimmage blocking tight end. So overall, Miami did good here. I mean, they needed all of these picks because they need to get players that fit what they want to be, and they're so far away from that in this rebuild. So I'm a fan of the volume approach. I don't know if they got any superstars here, but they got starters.
I really like this draft. There are some eyebrow raising picks, but the volume and just the turnaround of this roster, I gave this an A- here. I think they had some big names for a much needed class. I think that Caden Proctor is not going to play tackle for them. He's going to play guard, which is exactly where I want him to play. Chris Johnson, to me, is an excellent scheme fit for what Jeff Hafley does. This is a zone coverage type of defense, and that's perfect for what Chris Johnson does really well. So they needed corners and secondary players badly, and I think Chris Johnson's one of the best fits that they could have possibly had there. Jacob Rodriguez, I think the same. Man, you put him next to a tackling machine like Jordan Brooks, that's exactly what you want. You want to have Jordan Brooks be the guy that's super reliable going downhill and reading the run, and then Jacob Rodriguez can operate really well in space, and you're just letting him use his instincts very, very well. Caleb Douglas pick at 75. I mean, this is a minus 164 in the value category for me of where I had him on the big board. It was minus 229 for you. There are some people in the chat, and I'm not trying to take away from you guys being positive about it, but they're like, hey, he ran a 4.3. He's the field stretcher. I mean, Chris Brazel and Ted Hurst got picked after him. A different body type, but Zach Branch got picked after him. Chris Bell, funny enough, got picked after him
on the Dolphins.
On the Dolphins. But like Brennan Thompson got picked after him. They're just Bryce Lance got picked way after him. There are just too many guys that I would have liked much, much better in that role even. Will Kazmarek, though, I like that pick a lot. Chris Bell, it's a great pick to make there at number 94. Again, I didn't love Chris Bell in the top 50, but at 94, I'm all in. Kyle Lewis, I think, is an absolute stud for you. Such a potential difference maker as a unique nickel defender. Love him in Jeff Hafley's defense specifically. I think they're going to utilize what Kyle Lewis does best as a smaller linebacker. Sometimes, you could say he's built like a safety, but a guy who could play all around. And I even like DJ Campbell as a depth guard for them to play a little bit more powerful, and Max Llewellyn getting Mason Rieger as well. I like this, man. A- pick from me, and a much needed draft of massive turnover here for the Miami Dolphins.
All right, Minnesota Vikings.
The
Brian Flores draft.
Yes. Caleb Banks at number 18 overall. Did not see that one coming. Jake Golday, which I gave one of my favorite fits badge to because you talked about Brian Flores. I think that Jake Golday is an excellent fit for all of the versatility that Brian Flores has with his linebackers. Big Citrus, fan favorite. Going to the third round here, Caleb Tiernan and Jacoby Thomas. Going to the third round as well. 2 fifth-rounders in Max Bredesen and Charles Demings. They got Damone Claiborne in the 6th round, which, God, so lucky. So lucky to get Claiborne that late in the draft. And then Gavin Gerhardt, the center from Cincinnati there at 235. What do we think, Connor?
Very defense-focused draft from Minnesota. You take the grand slam cut on Caleb Banks because if he's healthy, he's going to eat under Brian Flores, but he's obviously got to have the foot injuries behind him. Golday, I'm excited to hear you talk about. We know the unique roles he could play. I love doubling down on defensive tackle because if Banks is dealing with some injuries as a rookie, Big Citrus, step on up, my guy. Caleb Tiernan, he's played a lot of football, and I think he's going to transition okay to guard. I really, really do. Another technician. We talked about that with KH Casey. That's Caleb Tiernan. Damone Claiborne, you said it, Trevor. Like, talk about a great change of pace player for this offense. I give this a B-, factoring in the risk of Banks. But of course, if they hit on the risk of Banks, this is such an amazing draft because him under Brian Flores would be absolute cinema.
Yeah, I gave this a C+. I would have liked for them to address center a little bit earlier. They had an opportunity to draft like Sam Hecht or Connor Liu instead of where they picked Jacoby Thomas, and I would have much rather them do that. Damone Claiborne, this might be harsh, but like I almost don't even want to give them credit for drafting Damone Claiborne. I mean, you waited to 189.
I guess we'll take him.
You picked a fullback 40 spots ahead of him.
The Bredesen pick alone knocked off added the minus.
I just it's funny. I mean, I don't mind the collection of players. I just think that they went about this sort of a strange way. I mean, Caleb Tiernan, I think he's an interior offensive lineman for them, which is fine. I wonder where they're at with Will Fries, after making that selection there at number 97. And again, like not opting for a center or anything. Did you have to pick Caleb Banks at 18? Maybe you did.
I guess you did.
Caleb Banks top 20 with 2-foot injuries, man.
Yeah, it shocked me.
Right. But
also,
I do like go ahead.
Don't know, but think like the Panthers, they were a Sadiq team. That was one thing I heard after the draft. I don't think a lot of teams expected the Jets to take Sadiq.
Oh, sure. But I'm saying who would have taken Banks, you think?
I don't know, but it was a clear pivot in my opinion. I don't know if he was the surefire.
Oh, you're saying that Sadiq would have been a Vikings target.
I think so.
Okay, interesting. All right. Jake Golday, I actually do like in this scheme, though. He's a bigger, longer linebacker who could play in the middle, but he could also do a lot of stuff in the slot and in space. So I am excited for him to get to work with Brian Flores. It was just a little bit of a strange draft for me. They passed up on Dylan Thieneman to draft Caleb Banks as well, which I had Thieneman as a top 10 player. So
that's a good call out. Yeah, that definitely affects the grade as well, who they didn't take at 18.
Yeah. And I see that I see a lot of people talking about like what Banks could be for them. If Banks is fully healthy, he's going to be awesome for them. If Banks plays long-term for them, right, with the foot injuries. So anyway, that's why I was kind of like, did you need to take him there? Could you have traded down knowing that both him and Thieneman were on the board and you would have been good with either? So I gave this one a C+. New England Patriots.
Oh, yeah.
So the Patriots, Caleb Lomu in the back end of the first round. Gabe Akis right after that. Eli Raridan in the third round. Fifth round, Karen Prutney, the defensive back from Wake Forest. Demetrius Crownover, the offensive tackle from Texas A&M in the sixth round. Nnamdi Obiazor, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah,
Obiazor, right? Linebacker from TCU. Barrett Morton, the quarterback from Texas Tech. Jam Miller, then Quintavious Hutchins. What do we think?
This was a B for me because of how much confidence I have in Akis and Raridan being starters at their positions. I'm a huge Eli Raridan guy, especially with Josh McDaniels, that just always has the answer for tight ends. If Josh McDaniels drafts you at tight end, he probably has the right plan for you. Prunty was maybe the earliest guy taken, Trev, that we didn't watch.
Yeah.
I think.
Right. I did not watch him, so I don't have a strong take.
I'm a big Obiazor guy. Converted safety, athletic in space, really impressive in coverage, I think, for a linebacker, sub-package linebacker and special teams player, but I really liked where they got him. Hutchins, yeah, that makes a lot of sense in that spot. This draft will obviously be judged on what Caleb Lomu becomes because he is so raw, but it's all there for him to be a starting tackle with his movement in his lower half and pass pro, but he's just not going to give you anything in the run game right now, in my opinion. So that's what this draft will be judged on, but I really liked their day two.
Yeah, I gave this a B-, but honestly, like I'd knock it up to a B now that I'm kind of sitting here looking at it. I think that Lomu can be a really nice long-term option for them. Gabe Akis, I think, is a perfect scheme fit for them. So I like them getting him in the second round at number 55. Raritan's a really nice tight end too for them to allow them to stay heavier personnel after losing Austin Hooper. You getting Crown over in the 6th round. I think that's pretty good value. Obi Izor, I think, is good value as well, the other linebacker from TCU. And then I like Quintavious Hutchins. I know I didn't get to his full profile, so I didn't have him on the big board, but I watched him in person at the Senior Bowl, and I saw the flashes of like, hey, when you allow him to just be a speed rusher for you, there is some value there. He's got a great first step, but he does not know what to do after that. But you can really, I think, work with a player like that. So to get him at 247, I think, was pretty nice. So the Barrett Morton picks, the Jam Miller picks, they're not really doing anything for me. The Prutney picks, I didn't watch him, but I think this is a solid B for them, especially if Lomu eventually, as they hope, becomes a starter for them at some point.
All right, rock solid for New England.
New Orleans, the New Orleans Saints. Oh, before we do the New Orleans Saints, we've been going for a little over an hour since the last time we said this. If you guys are watching this show and you are not subscribed to the program, we would love for you to be a part of the Addicts. We're obviously doing these recap shows, but we're going to be getting right into 2027 as well. Come hang out with us. Subscribe to the show. Get back in on the chat. We're going to go through all the positions of summer scouting. We're going to get to some way too early 2027 mock drafts, all of that great stuff. So if this is your first show, or if you're a reoccurring viewer and you just haven't subscribed, we would love for you to be subscribed to the channel. Come hang out and be one of the Addicts. New Orleans Saints. Your boy Jordan Tyson.
Oh, yeah.
Number 8 overall. My boy, Christian Miller. 42 overall. 2nd round. Oscar Delp in the 3rd. Jeremiah Wright in the 4th. Bryce Lance in the 4th. Lorenzo Styles Jr. in the 5th. Barrion Brown, the wide receiver from LSU, in the 6th. And then TJ Hall, the corner from Iowa, in the 7th. Notable UDFA signing. Michael Hellman, the edge rusher from Central Michigan.
I like that one.
What do we think, Connor?
I gave this a B+. I was a fan of this draft, notably because they got one of my favorite players in the entire draft in Jordan Tyson, and they got one of my other favorite players in this draft in Kristen Miller. That alone, with those combined, was plus 21 value with their first 2 picks. So to get what I think is the number 1 wide receiver, and then to get a stack and shed starting defensive tackle in a unit that needed the help, that put them in a great spot out of the gate. Delp, who went a little earlier than where I had him, I just feel like New Orleans will get more out of him than what Georgia did. Bryce Lance as a field stretcher. TJ Hall as a developmental off-coverage corner who's such a great run defender for a corner. It makes me wonder if he has a little bit more versatility besides special teams and depth corner. This is a B+ for me with the Saints. I think they did a really, really good job getting impact starters.
I loved this draft. This is an A from me. I am giving the New Orleans Saints an A. I think that Jordan Tyson and Bryce Lance are fantastic additions to a wide receiver room that not only needed the double dip, you're getting an excellent intermediate wide receiver in Jordan Tyson and a great vertical wide receiver in Bryce Lance. That allows you to truly use Chris Olave however you want to. And I think that this really helps maximize a big arm that Tyler Shuck has. So love that. Christian Miller, in my opinion, is one of the best run stuffers immediately on the interior defensive line for the New Orleans Saints. Oscar Delp, I think, is a really nice sort of, like we've talked about him, Swiss Army knife type of a wingback, inline fullback, maybe slot receiver or slot blocker, I should say. Sometimes even used as a fullback too. I think Jeremiah Wright can actually push Cesar Ruiz for a starting spot on that interior offensive line. And then TJ Hall, you mentioned him at 219. I really like TJ Hall's film. He's just not very fast. You can't put him in press. You can't put him in press man coverage situations, but he's one of the best run defending corners in the draft. And in this specific scheme, the Saints with Brandon Staley, they were top 10 in the NFL at how often they ran zone, because that's what Brandon Staley does. So he's a perfect scheme fit as well. I think when you look at this class as a whole, the fits, individually, you can look at each player and say, like, yeah, okay, like the value was a little bit good, a little bit bad here compared to where I had them on my big board. But I look at all these names collectively and then for New Orleans specifically, and I think they're going to get high impact out of a lot of these players. So this was an A draft to me.
New York Giants, next up.
The New York Giants. Went Arvell Reese at number 5. Francis Maui Noah then at number 10. Most notably not picking Caleb Downs at either selection. Your boy Colton Hood in the second round. Malachi Fields going in the third round, which I feel like was a really,
full
really
circle
good fit
moment
for this team. Wait, why was it a full circle moment?
because Malachi Fields was like the ideal third rounder all year, and then he appeared in the first round of mock drafts.
Oh, right.
And then he was forgotten about, and then he ends up back in the third round.
Yep. Bobby Jamison Travis, the defensive tackle from Auburn in the 6th round, J.C. Davis in the 6th round, and then Jack Kelly, the linebacker out of BYU in the 6th round as well.
I loved this draft. Arvell Reese was my top-ranked off-ball linebacker over Sonny Styles. That's where he's going to get to play with the Giants early on. Maui Noah was my 10th overall player. They took him 10th. I think he can play right guard as a rookie and right tackle long-term. You got to help out Jackson Dart. Colton Hood, press man corner, smart, physical, tough, fast. No-brainer at 37. Wish they didn't get jumped for Caden McDonald. I'm assuming that's what happened there. That this would have been a monster grade if that didn't happen, but I still love Colton Hood. Malachi Fields gives you a big-bodied wide receiver that can block and can play above the rim. Bobby Jamison Travis, I didn't value him at 186, but he does help your run defense if he can get on the field. J.C. Davis has been a 4-year starter at left tackle that could probably play guard for you, another kind of mauler in the run game. And Jack Kelly, a special teamer, maybe even sub-package blitzer at times. I gave the Giants an A-. I thought this was a Harbaugh draft true and through that really fits the mold and feel of what he wants his football team to be.
Yeah, on draft night when Arvell Reese got taken, I was like, man, where does he play? Where is he going to play on this team? Because we were just told for the last 2 months after the combine that he was an edge rusher. It's like, okay, well, you have Abdul Carter who plays on the edge. You have Brian Burns who plays on the edge. You have Kayvon Thibodeau who plays on the edge. And now you have Arvell Reese. Like, sure, waves of pass rushers is great, but at number 5 over Caleb Downs. And then it was like, no, okay, we see him as more of somebody who's going to be an off-ball linebacker. And all right, so he's going to be the more hunt and chase linebacker. And, Micah McFadden or Tremaine Edmonds, like those guys are going to be more of the Mike linebackers. And I can see that fit. And of course, there's a chance that Kayvon Thibodeau could get moved on this team as well. But all that to say, I gave this a B+ because I like the haul of players that they had. I just would have done things a little differently. If you're drafting Arvell Reese to be an off-ball linebacker, I'd have preferred Sonny Styles there at that point.
Okay.
Colton Hood was overdrafted to me. I know you like Colton Hood more than I did, but I would have rather had Denzel Boston was drafted after 37. So I would have rather had drafting Denzel Boston at 37 because I had him as a better player. And then at 74, you could have drafted a guy like Julian Neal or Devin Moore, obviously Jermon McCoy, but I feel like that's kind of like cheating to say that just because he slipped so far. But I would have gone through things a little bit differently. I liked the Giants draft. I just, again, would have done things a little bit differently, but I don't think that it makes it like a bad draft in any way, shape, or form. I think they certainly got better. But yeah, I would have taken Styles. I would have taken Downs at number 5 over Arvell Reese. And there's just a couple of things that I would have done differently.
That brings us to the New York Jets.
Yes. David Bailey at number 2 overall. So the decision between Arvell Reese and David Bailey ended up being David Bailey. You've hinted a little bit at Kenyon Sadiq sort of being a surprise there at number 16. They then trade back up to go get Omar Cooper Jr., D'Angelo Pons in the 2nd round, Darrell Jackson Jr. in the 4th, Cade Klubnik in the 4th, Onez Cooper, the guard from Miami, and then VJ Payne at 228. Big value for where we had them on the board.
Yeah, I always find myself to be a little bit more harsh on the Jets naturally, but they did really, really well here. I think that as you see all the badges from both of us, you get David Bailey at 2 as a pure pass rusher for a team that just created no chaos last year at all. It's why they literally didn't have an interception. It's going to take the right plan for Kenyon Sadiq, so hopefully Frank Reich has that. But he is such a dynamic athlete and a better blocker than he gets credit for. You needed a number 2 receiver. I think Omar Cooper could be that. D'Angelo Pons with Aaron Glenn is why I gave that one a badge, because it's Come on, man.
Yes. It's
right?
perfect.
It's perfect. And they're going to have Pons play inside and outside, but
it's just Rocky and Creed again.
More
inside.
Like
that's what it is.
Darrell Jackson Jr., he runs so hot and cold. His high-end plays are jaw-dropping at times, but he's got to get his pad level down. The good thing for him at round 4 for the Jets is he's just a developmental player, because they have Harrison Phillips, Jawan Briggs, David Onyemata, and Tavondre Sweat. So he's going to get to learn from some bigger defensive tackles. and we'll see if he thrives in that environment. I hated the move up for Cade Klubnik. Hated it. I just, if you want to take Cade Klubnik, be my guest, I guess. I was lower on him. I projected him as a long-term backup, as more of a 6th round kind of player.
Which I like.
Yeah.
At 110. Yeah. I'd have been cool. I'm cool with that at 110.
It's
maybe they didn't feel like they could wait though. You and I talked about that a little bit on the Bleacher stream when we saw it happen.
Usually know, in those scenarios. And as Cooper, scheme fit, gap scheme, run blocker, backup guard. VJ Payne, man, the Jets are not very good at safety besides Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't know how VJ Payne falls to the 7th round. Is there something we don't know? He's big, he's athletic, plays like a maniac. He can match up against tight ends in man coverage. He's not a good safety from zone awareness and all of that, but he's a matchup player. And you draft him in the 7th round to be more of a matchup player. I hate this because it comes off as bias, but I gave the Jets an A-.
All right. Well,
they built an infrastructure for the quarterback they're going to draft in 2027.
Yeah, I'll save you from bias. I gave it an A-.
There you go.
I think this is a really good draft. I would have taken a different player over David Bailey, right? I mean, like I would have taken Ruben Bain. I would have taken Arvell Reese. Like we've talked about that plenty pre-draft, and so that goes into it. But they chose David Bailey. They ended up drafting Sadiq at 16, and you go like, whoa, okay. But then Omar Cooper at 30, and you say, all right, well, if you flip those, I'm actually fine with it. I think Pond's is a perfect fit. I love this landing spot for VJ Payne. Somebody in the chat was asking what the little badges stand for. The yellow ones are some of our favorite fits, and then the blue ones are the day 3 difference makers that we're identifying here. We're not doing that for every team, but it's just
double Trevor badges.
I know. No, I think the Omar Cooper Jr. selection for them is great. I love him getting to work with Garrett Wilson specifically. I think that's a really good inside-out combo from both of those guys, especially now that you're throwing in Kenyon Sadiq into the mix as a slot type of receiver as well. So I really like that trio there. And then Payne, I think, is, like I was saying, a really nice scheme fit. If you are playing him as an outside corner, come on, Jets. See the vision. Put him on the outside. Let him play press coverage. Let his athleticism be what he leans on the most in the NFL, and I think he'll be a good player. Darrell Jackson Jr. is going to be a good rotational guy for them, and I actually like Cade Klubnik now that he's on the team. I agree, like trading up, it's like, all right, well, I don't love that, but because they traded up how many spots to get him? Quite a bit.
Yeah, they moved up quite a trade up. They burned a 4th rounder to go get him. to go get him. They probably just viewed him as the best backup quarterback in this draft, which, you know what, I would agree with. And they wanted to make sure that they went to secure. Great field of players to deal with. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, A- for the Jets. The Philadelphia Eagles, they went with Mekhi Lemon. They sniped Mekhi Lemon from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is probably the more accurate way to say that. Eli Stowers in the 2nd, Markel Bell in the 3rd, and then they waited a little bit. Cole Payton in the 5th, Micah Morris in the 6th, Cole Wisniewski in the 7th, Uar Bernard, the defensive tackle from Nigeria, in the 7th, and then Keyshawn James Newby, the edge rusher from New Mexico, there in the 7th as well. Notable undrafted free agent signings for the Philadelphia Eagles, Daquan Wright, the tight end out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, I love that signing. I was obviously very high on Daquan Wright, which does the UDFAs don't factor in my grade, but they definitely make a draft class look a lot better if the player makes the team. So Lemon, right kind of where I expected him to come off the board, definitely helps them revamp their pass catcher group for life after AJ Brown. Same with Stowers, although I do have a question of Stowers. He's not really going to give you much as a blocker, but he's such a unique athlete that maybe in this infrastructure, it's going to work out as a pure pass catching tight end. I love the Markel Bell pick here because they just know how to utilize the colossal tackles and hopefully develop him as a starter for the future.
I normally don't like supersized offensive tackles, but I'm actually intrigued by him. I don't mind it.
I didn't think they got tremendous value. Honestly, I didn't put Uar Bernard on the board because he's just a total projection as a newcomer to football. Keyshawn James Newby, I thought in the Michigan game he did show up, but I thought he'd be more of a UDFA kind of player, and it's pick 252, so you're essentially just drafting what you think you'd want to sign as a UDFA. This was okay for the Eagles. I gave it a B-. I think I'm so skewed by Howie dominating drafts that this shoulder shrug draft was Like, okay, it's a B minus.
Would you take the week off, Howie?
Yeah, it was just he just set the bar so high, and I thought this was a very ho-hum kind of draft.
I ended up giving it a B plus. And the reason why I gave it a B plus is because, one, I think the intel work was chef's kiss on knowing exactly where Mekhi Lemon was going to go and trading up one spot in front of them. That, I think, was absolutely beautiful work from Howie Roseman, who was really, really good at this draft game. I like the Cole Wisniewski pick as well. Michael Morris, I think, is a fit with their offensive line. Cole Payton, I think, is a really nice depth quarterback option to get. Bernard, I think that Philly has taking a chance on some of these bigger athletic guys, whether it's on the offensive or defensive lines. And so I like that. I like that landing spot for him, at least. How this draft class is going to be remembered leans on the shoulders of one man, and that's Jalen Hurts. Because I love Mekhi Lemon, and I like Eli Stowers. The thing is, those players are middle of the field type of receivers. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw middle of the field. He did a little bit more in 2025. He certainly didn't do it in 2024 when that Eagles offense was actually clicking on all cylinders. We all assume that A.J. Brown's no longer going to be on this team. So that means that it's Devontae Smith who's going to be a field stretcher for them. But then it's going to be Mekhi Lemon and Eli Stowers and Grant Calcaterra and Dallas Goedert, who are going to do a lot of work over the middle of the field. And Hurts has been reluctant to be that type of a quarterback to this point in his career. If he leans into it and he's good at it, I think both of those picks are going to be excellent for the Eagles. If he is bad at it, boy, do I think this offense is really going to struggle. So I gave this a B plus because I like the players that they drafted, but how this draft will be remembered and how good it will look depends on if Jalen Hurts can adjust how he plays the game versus what we've seen from him over the last 2 years.
And I'll say, because I know the chat's talking about it, just to be standard across the board, I didn't factor in veteran player traits for any draft class because they can get messy if you do for some and don't for some. I love the Jonathan Grenard trade. That was the best thing they did throughout this draft.
Right. Yes.
So that's not in the grade because I just want to evaluate the players and move on from there. But they did such a good job getting him, extending him for a very, very low cost.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, the next draft that we have here, lucked in to Max Ionicher, I kind of have to say, because they were gonna draft Mekhi Lemon, but I actually, funny enough, I kind of like how things ended up for them more than if they would have drafted Mekhi Lemon. Max Ionicher at number 21, Jeremy Bernard in the second round at 47, Drew Aller in the third, Dalen Everett in the third, Jennings Dunker in the third, Caden Weegett in the fourth, Riley Nowakowski in the fifth, Gabriel Rubio in the sixth, Robert Spears Jennings in the seventh, and then Eli Heidenreich with their final pick at number 230. Connor, how we feel?
I feel like Steelers fans didn't even really like this draft less than me. I gave this a rock solid B.
Okay.
Because Ihonicher is a little green. He's going to need some development with the penalties and the inconsistencies in the run game, but he is so athletic to develop at tackle. Jeremy Bernard, I loved in this draft. I obviously had him ranked a little higher than some and think he's going to be great in the slot for them. I don't think it's ever going to happen for Drew Aller. I'll just say that. And, somebody with his tools being drafted all the way at pick 76 tells you that the league was even kind of like, yeah, he's got all the tools, but it's been a not great ride so far. So I didn't like the Aller pick. Everett, he just falls out of phase way too often as a cover corner as much as he's got tools and he's big. So I didn't really like the Aller or Everett pick. Dunker, I think he's going to be a solid NFL guard. Weejan's a returner, and they took him in the fourth round. We were joking during the broadcast that apparently he was golfing when he got called to pick, so I didn't even think he thought he'd get picked there. Nowakowski is one of those guys in this draft that I just love. He does everything as a utility player. He could block as a fullback. He could play tight end. And then, the last two picks at the end were real value for me. They were real players. Like Heidenreich, maybe he's your Kenny Gainwell now. Robert Spears Jennings, fast, physical safety. So I just thought they got volume across the board and maybe no stars here, but the Steelers don't really need stars right now. They need players on this roster. I give this just a rock solid B. And Weejan I see it in the chat. Weejan is a deadly returner. There's no denying that. It's just, man, round 4, I was a little surprised. I think he was even surprised.
Yeah. Wasn't he? He was golfing.
That's he was
right?
golfing. Yeah.
Yeah, he was golfing. He didn't think he was getting drafted that high. I get it's a B minus. And maybe we're just, I don't know. Steelers fans hate it a lot more than we do. Clearly, I think they lucked into the Maxi Onature, Jeremy Bernard 1-2 combo.
Yeah,
there,
right.
But,
it feels that way.
but they still drafted it, and I think Maxi Onature is their starting offensive tackle long term. Like, I think it's him and Faltanu on each side of the offensive line. I think Dunker can develop into a starting guard for them. He's not a tackle at all. He's a guard. You got to work on his footwork a little bit, but I've talked about how I like Jennings Dunker a lot as a guard, and I think if you get a good offensive line coach, you're going to feel good about the development of him on the interior. I didn't love Dalen Everett. I didn't love Drew Aller, so those are kind of knocks for me. I think Caden Weegett was definitely overdrafted, but he's a great special teams guy. There's no question about it, but you're special teams guy. Like, I think you could have gotten Caden Weegett very easily in the 5th round, and they drafted him at least a full round early. I think Robert Spears-Jennings is a good depth 7th round player. I think Riley Nowakowski gives you some versatility and the personnel that you want to have there with Mike McCarthy now as the head coach and the offense coordinator there. And Eli Heidenreich, you've got to replace a lot of the catches that Kenneth Gainwell had last year. Now, hopefully not as many, because I don't want the Pittsburgh Steelers to lean into the running back passing game as much as they did last year. But I think this is a solid draft. Again, there's some parts of it that I didn't love, but I think a B minus is totally fair here for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers. So they drafted my boy Deshaun Stribling, 33.
You thought you loved him.
I did think I did. I thought I loved him, and I had him like 55 or 57 or something. Romello Height at 70. Caitlin Black.
The running back?
At 90. Grayson Halton. Carver Willis in the 4th round. Ephesians Prysock in the 4th round as well. Jaden Duggar, the linebacker from Louisiana in the 5th round. And then Enrique Cruz, the junior the offensive tackle, out of Kansas. Yeah, how we feel about this one, Connor?
Definitely a strange draft. Very, Shanahan knows what he likes. The values are all over the place and mostly off. Romello Height was a great scheme fit here as that wide 9 kind of situational rusher.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I liked Kalen Black a lot out of the non-combine guys.
No, clearly you didn't.
Clearly I did not.
I didn't like him enough.
I was like, someone's going to take Kalen Black in the 5th round, and he's going to become part of a committee. Well, he was the 90th pick in the draft, and maybe he's the future after Christian McCaffrey. It's just, when you don't factor into the pass game at all, it's hard to be a...
Well, he factors into the pass game in the fact that he is a pass protector.
Right. They never threw him the ball.
But I can't sign off on him being a worthwhile pick at 90 for being a pass protector.
I wasn't very high on Grayson Halton, even though he fits their one-gap penetrator kind of D-tackle mold. I mean, Carver Willis I was lower on. Prysock we both liked, a big experienced corner from 2 programs. Stribling has size and speed. I gave it a C- because, to the Niners' credit, they do know what to do with their reach picks. They do. And I like Prysock. I like Romello Height for this defense. Stribling does give them a vertical threat. But my God, it's just the off the rails nature of when they pick guys makes it hard to give them a good grade. It really, really does. They are such a confusing team with how they operate and how they reach at spots, despite the fact that they're going to get some production out of this class, but they always leave you wanting more for how well coached they are.
So I typoed this one. So the grade that's going to show up from Tyler is a B-. It should be a C- there from them, because I was debating between a D+ and a C-. I ended up going with a C-, but this is such a frustrating draft because, Connor, I actually think that John Lynch did a really great job navigating this draft. Like, they traded back from Miami and they were able to jump up 48 spots in doing so with the pick that they got later in the draft.
Right.
They also moved back from 58 to 70, so they moved back 12 spots and jumped up from 152 to 107 in the picks that they got back. They knew they were going to take an edge rusher, and there was no great edge rusher to choose for them at 58, so they said, okay, we're going to move back to 70, and we know that we'll probably be able to get Romello Height at 70. So they navigated 2 different trades excellently. And they got like great value out of moving down at certain spots. The problem was, I don't love what they did with it.
I know.
I like Stribling a lot, and I think there's a world where he's a really good receiver for them, especially with Brandon Ayuk out of there at some point. I do think that Romello Height is a really nice scheme fit as that designated pass rusher. I thought Kalen Black was way overdrafted, and I think the 48 spots that they got, they kind of like threw that away, in my opinion. Halton is fine for where they picked him. Carver Willis, that's way early for Carver Willis, in my opinion, but at least he's a scheme fit. Like, he's very clearly just a zone blocking offensive lineman, and I think he's maybe a center. So, like, I think there's a world where, like, maybe he's a starting center for them, if he develops enough, but he's got to be able to handle power a little bit better. I like Ephesians Prysock. I thought that was good value getting him there at 139, but it's just a very frustrating draft because I like how they navigated it. I just don't love the return that they got on a lot of how they navigated it. So, hey, another one where it's like, you just got to trust your coaching staff, and I suppose that's what we got to do here for the San Francisco 49ers. The Seattle Seahawks, defending champs, they went with Jadarian Price there at 32, Bud Clark at 64, Julian Neal at 99, Bo Stevens in the 5th, Emmanuel Henderson, the special teams demon at 199 in the 6th round, then 3 7th-round picks. Andre Fuller, the corner from Toledo, Devin Eastern, the defensive tackle from Minnesota, and then Michael Dansby, the corner from Arizona. What do you got, Connor?
I love Jadarian Price, and I understand the whole running back round 1, but this is a team that they're built on running the football, and I think he's going to be a really, really good pro, especially the way he glides in zone. I think he's got more of pass game ability than he was able to show playing behind Jeremiah Love. He's a good pass protector. They needed a rangy free safety. They get that in Bud Clark. They love their big athletic corners like Julian Neal. Mm-hmm. You make the aggressive move for Bo Stevens. That was costly. They traded 2027 4th-round pick. I did factor that into the grade. I did not like their day 3. I thought all they really got here, Emmanuel Henderson, I think is going to be a really, really good gunner. That was what I noticed on tape with him, but I just didn't think they got much out of day 3, where I ended up giving this a C+. I like Price. Clark was a need, but I thought the trade was costly for Stevens, and it wasn't my favorite collection of later round players.
Yeah, I think I told Tyler I gave this one a B, but honestly, like I would have rather given this one a C, honestly, just sort of like looking at the list, because Jadarian Price, it's interesting, right? Because Price I was lower on Price, but this is the ideal fit for him.
Perfect
I think he has to go to an outside zone scheme team. I wish they would have traded down, but maybe somebody takes Jadarian Price within the next couple of picks. So I'm just not so sure. I had him like in the 70s. If I was doing a Seattle Seahawks board, I probably would have had him like in the 40s, but still, I think 32 was a little bit of a reach there for a running back, but they did need one. Bud Clark, I think it's just a roller coaster type of a safety, but they did need that free safety type of a player. But they did draft him over AJ Halsey, I believe, so would have rather had Halsey in that regard. Julian Neal's a really nice scheme fit for them as an athlete with those longer arms. Bo Stevens, I think, is a good scheme fit for them as well. I just think it was a draft that, like, you found players that were scheme fits. I just felt like you were overdrafting a lot of them. So yeah. I didn't really know what to do with this draft. I ended up giving it a C. I think it's okay. But yeah, it's just this is a really tough one. This is a really tough one for me to grade because I thought a lot of these players went earlier than I thought they should have gone. But I don't hate the scheme in which they went to, so I do feel as though Seattle identified talent the correct way for what they needed.
I think we saw it exactly the same.
Okay, all right. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, boy.
And I've been waiting, baby. Number 15 overall, they got Reuben Bain Jr., who, surprise, surprise, that's a badge for me. It's one of my favorite fits. 2nd round, they got Josiah Trotter, the linebacker from Missouri. 3rd round, Ted Hurst, the wide receiver from Georgia State. Keontae Scott in the 4th round. That was another badge for me here as a day 3 difference maker. DeMonte Capehart, the defensive tackle from Clemson. Billy Stroud, the guard from Notre Dame. And then Bauer Sharp, the tight end from LSU. Connor? What'd you have for the Buccaneers?
The Buccaneers got one of my A's.
Yeah, baby!
The Wriggler's final act. And boy, is it a masterpiece. Look at all that green. Reuben Bain at 15 is highway robbery. Trotter.
So many of the Jets at Homer.
Yes, it's me, Bucks fan. That's amazing. Trotter has some limitations in space and coverage, but he's a really young prospect that is a real thumper downhill. Ted Hurst, I call him the small school George Pickens. Keontae Scott, man, he's the most physical nickel you'll ever see in terms of defending the run. I like his click and close and off coverage as well. I was a fan of DeMonte Capehart as a rotational run stuffing nose tackle with power. Billy Schrauth might have been my favorite pick based off of value. If he did not get hurt, he would have been a top 100 selection.
I agree.
I think he's a starter at guard. Absolutely. So Jason Light just really leans into the, oh, you guys are obsessed with taking your players. You don't care if it's 100 spots early. I'm going to take all the guys that fell 30 spots too late. He just does that over and over again. And it sounds like a simplified way to draft, but you have to give him credit because he's one of the only guys doing it.
This one's an A for me, as you would expect. Look, I would have taken CJ Allen over Josiah Trotter in a vacuum, and even I think for this team, but Josiah Trotter is excellent as a downhill blitzing linebacker. Like, that is one of the things that he does best. And Todd Bowles asks his linebackers to attack the line of scrimmage a lot. So he's a good scheme fit for them. Ted Hurst, excellent scheme fit because Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, all those guys are better as Z or slot receivers. They need somebody to play the X. I think you and I talked about this on the show before the draft. Who's playing X right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They needed to think about an option there, and they get a really good one with Ted Hurst. Ruben Bain Jr. is my number 3 overall player in the class. I know for a fact that Tampa Bay wanted to trade down from number 15. They were looking at all sorts of trade options. They felt really great about it. And then all of a sudden, Ruben Bain Jr. was on the board, and they said, nope, forget all that other stuff. And they just turned in the card for Ruben Bain. I think he's an excellent fit for Todd Bowles as well. So these aren't just good players for me. These are excellent scheme fits too. Bain's going to be able to play defensive end in their odd front. He's going to be able to play stand-up outside linebacker. They'll kick him inside when they're in an even front and let him play as a 3-technique defensive tackle or a 5-technique defensive end when Kalijah Cansey's on the field. I think there's a world where Billy Schrauth, if he stays healthy, he becomes a starting guard for this team. DeMonte Capehart's a great rotational defensive tackle with good length. And Bauer Sharp's going to be a great special teams player and a valuable player to make the end of this roster as a tight end who likes to do the dirty work in the blocking game. This is an A draft to me. No notes. I mean, again, I would have rather had CJ Allen, maybe.
Sure.
But the value of the other players that they have outside of that selection more than make up for me initially giving this an A- and now bumping it up to an A. I thought the Buccaneers did an incredible job here, and their defense should look a lot better than what it did last year.
Nobody could ever call him the Wriggler again. He's just foreshadowing how the actual draft
They're
goes.
definitely going to call me the Wriggler again.
Forever
but
and
I
always.
appreciate you trying to fight back the fire there. The Tennessee Titans, we got 2 teams left.
Yep.
The Tennessee Titans, Carnell Tate at number 4, Keldrick Falk at 31, Anthony Hill Jr., then Fernando Carmona, the interior offensive lineman from Arkansas, Nick Singleton from Penn State, Jackie Marshall, the defensive tackle from Baylor, Pat Coogan, a.k.a. the Cougar, the center
Patty
from
Cougs, the
Indiana.
Cougar.
And then Jaron Kanak, the tight end from Oklahoma. Ooh, we got a bunch of notable undrafted free agents here. Emil Wagner, your boy.
Yeah.
Latrell Hutchinson. Bishop Fitzgerald. And then this is where Tyron Montgomery went. Hell yeah. Love that for Tyron Montgomery. Good spot, too, as a vertical type of wide receiver. So, Connor, what we think?
So they had such a flashy free agency, and I just felt underwhelmed by this draft. It's not that it's a bad draft, right? Because when you look at the end product, they will get starters from it. But it was just underwhelming with all this capital they had. I had Jordan Tyson as the number 1 wide receiver in the draft, so I can't sit here and look at you guys with a straight face and be like, yeah, Carnell Tate's a great pick at 4. Carnell Tate will be a fine wide receiver in the NFL. And I understand they felt like he has a better chance to be on the field than Tyson. I get all of that, but part of the analysis game is sometimes you got to take a stand and have some takes. So I just felt like it was a reach on Tate. It was a reach on Keldrick Falk, who I do not like Keldrick Falk in Robert Saleh's scheme. I was actually pretty surprised by this. I don't really like.
Well, I mean, they drafted Michael Williams last year, and this is the same player.
Yeah,
essentially,
he has more success with guys that get off the ball and win with speed. So, you know, they and also you signed John Franklin Myers and traded for Jermaine Johnson to get more power. and then you take Falk this early. I don't really love the fit. Anthony Hill Jr., this is a good place for him, for a player that we had real questions on. See ball, get ball kind of linebacker in Saleh's scheme. Singleton can handle third down duty because he could pass protect and catch the ball, and he's explosive downhill. Jackie Marshall's pass rush tape in 2024 was so much better than 2025. Talked about Patty Cougs, the Cougar. Just a backup center, super smart, super polished, limited length and athleticism. So I gave this a C because I my take is, Trevor, I thought the Titans should have done much more with their bountiful capital in this draft. And I just kind of walk away like, okay.
I ended up giving it a B-. I go to B- here for the Tennessee Titans in their grade. I think I agree with you. Tate, I don't love Tate at 4, but he was the perfect receiver that they need.
He's a great fit with them. There's no denying that.
And that's the thing is like, yeah, was it a little early for me for Tate in a vacuum? Sure, but how much further were they going to be able to trade down and still get Tate? Probably not far from what we heard other teams really, really liking Carnell Tate in this draft. So you stick at 4 and you pick the receiver who actually allows you to unlock the vertical passing game because you do not have a consistent vertical wide receiver right now. And Cam Ward really needs that. So I'm with you initially, but I couldn't be too hard on it. This is early for Keldrick Falk, even at 31 for me. And I agree with you. I think that Saleh should have been going after somebody who could be a little bit more of a pass rusher when it comes to winning when you only have 4 down linemen. I wasn't the biggest fan of Anthony Hill Jr., but I agree with you. I think that this is the right spot for him with Saleh. And this was kind of the last of the linebackers here with him getting picked at 60, because after pick 60, because initially I was like, that's too early for Anthony Hill, in my opinion. But if they really wanted to add a linebacker, the next linebacker that was picked was Jimmy Rolder at 118.
Yeah.
So almost 60 picks later than where he got picked at number 60.
He's probably the least problematic pick for me. You see the -2, and he's the same thing. I have no questions about that pick.
Fernando Carmona, it's a -103 from like where I had him on the big board, but like I do actually kind of like him for more of Brian Daboll's power scheme, and I think the same thing with Pat Coogan as well. So these are at least 2 decent scheme fits there. The Nick Singleton pick to me is just a flyer. It just doesn't move me. I like the Jaron Kanak pick in the 7th round. I think there's some plus value to be had there, but I ended up going with a B- here for the Tennessee Titans.
So I see this comment, and I don't mean to I don't mean to clap back at all. It's more just conversational. Really weird takes on Keldrick Falk's fit. He's the classic Eric Armstead pick in Saleh's defense, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Eric Armstead was 6'7", 292 pounds.
Right.
At the combine.
Right. And he's big, and he's like 310 now, I would assume.
That's not the same. I just want to defend the criticism a little bit here. Keldrick Falk, my problem was I wish Keldrick Falk was 290 to 300 pounds.
Right. Me too.
He's 276. I think they have what Keldrick Falk would be asked to do this year. I think they have that already. I think they went out and spent on it. So I once again, I hope he's a more impactful player than what we expect.
And yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. We've talked about Keldrick Falk plenty throughout the draft season.
Sure.
You and I are lower on Keldrick Falk. He is a long-limbed, in my opinion, 3-4 defensive end type of a player. The value that I had on him was a late 2nd round type of a player. His pass rush win percentage was right around 10-11% through most of his career when he was at Auburn. I am just not really one to say that you're going to get way better at pass rushing when you get to the NFL if it was never really in your nature when you were in college. So I'm not just going to blindly bet on that. I think he's a solid player. I would have had other players because the defensive ends, let's see. He was picked at 31. The other players that we had on the board that you could have picked: TJ Parker, R. Mason Thomas, Cassius Howe, Derek Moore, Zion Young, Gabe Akis. I mean, Kieran Crawford, I even like a better pass rusher, and obviously he was on the same team as Keldrick Falk. So it's just sort of how you see the player.
That's it. Yeah.
I feel like Saleh needs more pass rushers, and that's also why I didn't love the Mykel Williams pick last year either. It's for the same reason. Now I know that Mykel was hurt, so I'm not going to sit here and like totally judge Mykel Williams after a year where he was a rookie and then he was hurt. But like, I think Saleh actually needs more pass rushers out of the guys that play on the 4-down front for him. Anyways, Washington, last team, bringing us home. Small class here, which is interesting, and I think kind of goes into their grade. Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State at number 7 overall, did not trade down from that spot. Didn't trade down from 71 either, where they took Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams. 5th round, they got Joshua Joseph, the edge rusher from Tennessee. Katron Allen, the fat man, getting your final badge here of the exercise as a day 3 difference maker. Matt Golban, the center from Michigan State at 209. And then bringing us home, Ethan Kaliak-Manis. Notably getting drafted ahead of Garrett Nussmeier, by the way. As we all expected. As we all expected, of course.
Total me. From Kaliak-Manis.
How we feel, Connor?
Love this draft. Blown away by what they were able to do with that much capital, right? I think that you go into it, obviously the Laramie Tunsil trade has an impact on the amount of capital you have to spend. You get Sonny Styles at 7, exactly what the middle of their defense needs. They've spent a lot of money to get younger and faster on this defense. Well, then you add Sonny Styles in the middle of it. It's going to get Dan Quinn's unit back to what it needs to be. Antonio Williams is going to fit in perfectly with Jaden Daniels. He's a quick area separator from the slot. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands. He is reliable in terms of catching the football and finishing plays. Jaden Daniels is going to love him. Joshua Josephs, love the first step as a pass rusher. DPR year 1 in this scheme. Somebody that just consistently had high pressure rates because of his athleticism. Katron Allen, he could be a 1B in this backfield. Downhill runner. That's why he got the badge from me. Runs through contact. More of what the Commanders need in this backfield for sure. Matt Golban, legitimate center depth. The Kaliak-Manis pick was, a little out there, and we liked him at one point of the fall, and he just didn't finish the season you hoped he would.
Right.
I gave this a B+, and that's factoring in that they were working undermanned. They didn't have a lot of picks. I mean, if they had a 2nd-round pick and took an average player, this would have been in the A's. The Commanders did a great job the entire offseason.
I thought, given what they had, this is an A draft for me. I liked this because there were 2 players specifically. Well, I guess you could make the case for 4, really, that I wouldn't have traded. Most, I don't even want to say most. Okay, the Commanders didn't have a lot of picks in this draft. So you look at number 7, you basically say, all right, well, if you want meaningful other picks, you have to trade down for number 7. One of the players in which I would have said, no, stick and pick was Sonny Styles. And Sonny Styles was there and they picked him. So I love that. I love that he made it there. I love that they pulled the trigger on Sonny Styles. I love that they didn't get too cute with it. Because to me, I saw somebody say this in the comments. Where does Sonny Styles play with Frankie Louvu and with Leo Chanel, who they signed? Sonny Styles actually just gets to play the mic. Like, he gets to play the Mike backer on this team. He gets to be the centerpiece. Frankie Louvu is more of sort of like a Sam linebacker anyways, like a power linebacker anyways. And then to me, Leo Chanel is just you can do so much with him. He's a blitzing player for you. He can play as a Sam. He can rush off the edge. He can rush up the middle. Like, Leo Chanel is just a chaos causer at the 2nd level. And you get to allow him to do that now that you have Sonny Styles as the Mike in the middle. So I like that. Antonio Williams gives them some speed, but also some good yards after catch stuff as an underneath type of a wide receiver. So I think he's very complimentary of what they already have on the roster. Getting Joshua Joseph, somebody who might be one of the most talented pass rushers in this class, he just hasn't put it all together and is consistent with it. You getting him in the 5th round, I mean, that's talent that you would have picked in the 3rd.
Yeah.
So to me, when I look at the Commanders, I go, all right, well, you didn't trade down to acquire picks, but you certainly got plus value out of so many other selections that really helped supplement the fact that you didn't have a lot of picks. I think Katron Allen, Bill Krosky-Merritt, and Rashad White are a really nice running back trio that can do a lot of different things for you. And Matt Golban's a really good backup center for them as well. So to me, I love this draft. I think they did an excellent job capitalizing on talent as it was falling to them, knowing they didn't have a lot of ammunition to work with. But when they did pull the trigger, I thought it was very meaningful on players that could be big-time difference makers for them.
And there it is.
And there it is,
Longest
folks.
show of the year besides the charity stream.
Longest show of the year. Folks, we appreciate everybody tuning in for this one, riding with us for almost 3 hours of this show. You guys are the absolute best. And honestly, a massive thank you to you guys for everything. Yes. Going back all the way to summer scouting, the beginning of summer scouting last year, all of our coverage that we had with the stock up, stock down episodes during the season, the fix your franchises, the mock drafts, the player rankings, all of our coverage of the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, through all the collab mock drafts, and especially everybody who hung out with us during the draft shows on the Bleacher Report stream. You guys are incredible. We say this all the time. We truly mean it. This is the best draft community in the world. You guys are what makes this so much fun. And I honestly can't wait to do it all with you next year.
I am really genuinely, I get excited for a new class. I'm laughing. I know. Because TD put Connor so ready to dip. Gentlemen, there's nothing scarier in this world than a hungry, very pregnant wife. And you need to make sure that you take care of your hungry, pregnant wife. But no, we're good here. I agree. I want to echo those statements, Trev, because it's amazing to witness the audience travel with us. We go to another place like Bleacher Report, and we see all of you in the chat, and you're in on the bits, and Lefko's involved, and we're laughing, and we're having fun, and it's man, life like this sure is sweet, man.
That's
really
all
is. I could say. What really a year it was. It was a very rewarding, special year, and that is a thank you to the addicts that watch and listen to this show.
We love you guys. We appreciate you. We're going to give this show, this specific episode, a little bit of time to breathe. This is the only episode from us this week, but we'll have an episode for you guys next week. We haven't exactly decided on what it's going to be, but it's definitely going to be something looking into the future for 2027. So whether that's reviewing like a 2027 mock or something like that, we'll have an episode for you guys next week. So for the chef behind the scenes, who put in so much work this season, enhancing all of the visuals, all of everything that we do on this show. As always, nonstop W's here to end the show for the chef in the chat. For Connor Rogers, I'm Trevor Sikkema, saying thank you guys so much for watching this episode and every episode of the 2026 NFL draft cycle here at the NFL Stock Exchange Show. And we'll see you guys next time.